As we all know, there are two types of people in this world. They are winners and losers. Unfortunately, he is a loser, and a total loser. He brought a letter of resignation. The statement said that Xiao Luo wanted to leave due to illness. Living in this antisocial world made him realize that there is only one step between success and failure. The girl asked Xiao Luo if he was quitting because she had broken up with him. The man replied that he had his own reasons and she had nothing to do with it. If there's no problem with the statement, he thinks they won't see her again. She apologized to Xiao Luo. She had brought 4 years of precious time with him and couldn't waste any more on him. She doesn't want to get married and live with him in a cramped rented apartment. She doesn't want to live her whole life as an ordinary housekeeper. This is something that Zhao Menqi doesn't want. Xiao Luo replied that she might as well not talk about it. After all, he respects her choice. He shouldn't quit his job over this. Does he really want to be a loser his whole life? But he didn't even listen when she called out to him. Success and failure are just evaluations issued by other people. But from now on, he will not allow anyone to rate him. Hua Hanfeng came up to him and met the protagonist. He thanked the man for taking care of the tzitzis for so long. The girls talked about how Mr. Hua and Zhao Mengqi were now together. They thought that this was the reason why Xiao Luo quit. In that case, shouldn't something interesting happen now? The man apologized, for his hands were full. Hua Hanfeng mentioned that he slept with Mengqi and replied that she was very good. He had tried 36 poses with her, but something else surprised him. Namely that it was untouched. Hua Hanfeng wondered if he was impotent, and if he should find a doctor for him. He just mocked the protagonist. The girls also started discussing that in 4 years, he had never even slept with her once. There's really something wrong with this Xiao Luo. In 4 years, at least something should have happened. But is it normal to spread his sex life to others? Xiao Luo asked if he was mentally ill for sharing the details of himself and his girlfriend's private life. Hua Hanfeng grabbed him by the collars and asked how dare this trash call him sick. But the protagonist freed himself from his grip. He called the man an arrogant bastard and ordered his guards to beat him up. The man swung his arm to strike him, but Xiao Luo did it first. They clearly didn't expect this. Hua Hanfeng asked the man why he was still here and told him to go beat him up. But the protagonist decided to get ahead of him. Truly, his fist stopped the man. He asked if that was all he could do. Xiao Luo only smiled and struck with his foot. That's really all he can do, but he's damn good at it. Xiao Luo should know who Hua Hanfeng is. The protagonist can hit him if he no longer wants to stay in Jiancheng. The man approached him, asking about what he was saying there. If Xiao Luo dared to touch him, Hanfeng and his dad would make sure that he could no longer stay in Jiancheng. He would tell him not to go near him. But the protagonist must raise him instead of his own father. He flew right back against the wall. Zhao Mengqi came out to them and told Xiao Luo to stop. She asked if he had lost his mind and why he beat up Mr. Hua like that. She immediately went over to Mr. Hua and asked if he was all right. The protagonist wondered if Zhao Mengqi thought that the 4 years of their relationship was just a joke. Xiao Luo asked if she really thought that she and this animal really had some kind of love present. It looked kind of funny. The man turned around, talking about how Hua Hanfeng only likes to sleep with her. The girl shouted out what he meant. Xiao Luo replied that he meant exactly what he said. And he said the word system. The system sent a notification that only 22 people had strong feelings. 215 points had been obtained. At this point, he could exchange skillfulness in foreign languages. He decided to exchange everything. The system sent a notification that the exchange was successful. From his current skills, he had a king with a greedy body and a knack for foreign languages. In the end, Xiao Luo will be the winner, and they should just wait. That day, a dialogue box appeared in front of him, and he was about to think it was a hallucination. But it wasn't. He asked the system what it was. The system came from a parallel Earth called I-168Q, and decided to integrate with the user because it had enough power. The raison d'etre of the system is to turn the user into a genius in order to change their destiny. Xiao Luo asked, "And what is he like now?" He thought that he was pretty good, after all. He is an engineer. But the system reported that the user was a mediocre individual. It told him to earn points and exchange them for rewards. He clearly did not expect to be a mediocre individual. He wondered how the system would change his fate. Maybe it would give him a couple $100 million or make him a general. The system can only change the user's physique and tighten up his knowledge and experience. It turns out that it's not as simple as he thought. In the end, he has to rely only on himself. He saw his mother's message that his father was sick and asked if he had any money. He wrote that he would transfer the money within a couple days. He thought that a man without money was no man at all. On the phone, he was talking to his friend who was asking why Xiao Luo was only calling a few days after such a big event. After all, he had told the protagonist that this Zhao Mengqi was unreliable. she went to Hua Hanfeng. The man decided not to talk about it now and asked if he had any ways to make money. He was approached by a girl who said she really needed money. She asked me to give her a few dollars. He told his friend to wait a minute and replied to the girl that he had no money. She apologized to her uncle, but suddenly she saw the protagonist giving her the money after all. The man replied that it was all he had. She recognized her uncle as a good man and replied that Buddha would bless him. He also noticed that this girl was limping, and he thought it was a cripple. The system sent a notification that a temporary job was detected. He must rescue a strange girl and will be rewarded with 300 points for completing the task. Looks like this girl's in trouble. He went back to talking to his friend and said that he could continue, but his friend just sent him away. Does he really think he's from the customer service hotline? And why would he even expect this man? If he wanted to be quiet, he would have just hung up. Xiao Luo made a point of speaking business. His friend knew a runner who wanted to buy local goods by taking a loan and transport them to another place to sell. But the formalities were not followed and the loan was not approved for him. So if he had 130,000 yuan, he could earn about 20,000 yuan in 20 days. Of course, Xiao Luo didn't have that amount of money. The friend also recognizes a girl who wants to open a nail salon, and now she needs about 50,000 to buy equipment. Within a year, you can get 60,000, or become a co-owner and receive a percentage of the profits. Meanwhile, he was watching that girl. She turned back around. He immediately hid behind the house and told me to wait for him for a bit. The man asked if the main character thought he was a cab driver of some sort. Since he needs a way to make money, and he called to him, let him listen. There was a man with a knife saying it was too little. I guess you really don't need a second leg. She begged me not to mutilate her leg, and the main character witnessed it all. He was tired of listening to her whining every day. Either she pays or he breaks her leg. The main character intervened and told him to get away from this girl. The man with the knife asked who he was. A friend on the phone also asked what happened there. Xiao Luo said to get away from that girl. Didn't he even hear it? The man started threatening him with a knife and guessed that he had something against such a business. Apparently, he's looking to get himself killed. A friend on the phone asked to tell him where he was and what happened. At the same time, Xiao Luo was attacked. The protagonist threw the man off with a punch. On the phone, the man became even more worried, especially when he heard noises like that. He asked if he should call someone. He walked over to the girl, calming her down. She started crying, saying that she wanted to go home because she missed her mom and dad. Xiao Luo replied that he would take her to her policeman uncle and he would take her home. He finally replied to his friend that everything was fine, and there was a little scuffle. But he didn't have 50,000 yuan. He also said that he was going to the police station, so they would call later. Meanwhile, they were already being watched. The stranger recognized that this guy was good. It was morning and someone knocked on his door. He didn't know who it was. The man introduced himself as Chu Yunxiong, who would like to ask brother Xiao Luo for help. The name sounded familiar to him. Could it be that Jiangshan's richest man? He saw that the man looked exactly the same as he did on TV. But the truth was, he didn't even know why such a rich man was looking for him. Xiao Luo replied that he was an ordinary poor man and asked why a person with Chu Yunxiong's position was looking for him. The man replied that yesterday he saw Junior helping others, and his skills are pretty good. The protagonist wondered if this man had seen the system, but the system reported that regular people couldn't see it. He has a rival who has recently made friends with gangsters, and the man fears his daughter may be in trouble. He needs someone to protect her from the shadows under the guise of a student. He replied that he wasn't really suited to be a bodyguard. Besides, he would have to pretend to be a student. Chu Yunxiong was willing to pay 1,000,000 yuan, but the protagonist was still thinking, so he offered 2 million, whereupon the protagonist agreed. For 2 million, he really got here. It's also a class full of girls. They were surprised to see the guy. Some have already fallen in love with him at first sight. They immediately surrounded him, talking about how the younger brother was very handsome. They also asked him if he had a girlfriend and what he thought of her. It had been a long time since she'd seen young handsome men. The girl replied that it was just a leather bag. The teacher told them to take their seats. The other girls thought the teacher just wanted to take the handsome boy for herself. The girl with glasses decided to find a place for him. Also, if he had any questions, he could address her. Xiao Luo thought it was a wolf's den. The energy in these college girls is through the roof. He also didn't understand why it was only girls. They're just bloodthirsty. She decided to trip him up. Quite casually, he touched her breasts. The guy was talking about how good their firmness was, after which he immediately apologized to her. The others didn't seem to understand what he was saying, after which he ran back to his seat. and the girl thought in her mind that men were really just a bunch of cattle. The second class of the afternoon. He wanted to sleep so badly on this one. He'd fallen asleep completely by accident, though the guy was holding on as best he could. The teacher asked the newly arrived student what he thought about it, and then she remarked that he dared to fall asleep in her class. He's awake. The girl realized that this was a good chance for her. Xiao Luo noted that this new student apparently did not respect the teacher at all. Is this girl really the target of his assignment, and why is she constantly trying to frame Xiao Luo? After which Chu Yue called him a rude person. He obviously didn't like that. The boy apologized to the teacher and explained that he had only moved in last night. He needed time to get used to the new place. That's why he fell asleep. As for what his classmate said, he asked her to clarify when it was he who was rude. The girls didn't expect that he was somewhere bickering with Chu Yue. She only looked away in embarrassment. The asshole would have his way with her. The teacher decided not to dwell on it and wanted to continue the lesson. She wrote that money is the source of all evil. He then asked the students what they thought about this statement. Shu Yi raised her hand, for she wanted to say her thought. Shakespeare said that money has infinite power to confuse truth and falsehood and to confuse the world. It is also the main reason for the spread of senseless crimes. They fuel greed, turn a commodity into a good mood, makes people lose their conscience before they even realize it. So she thinks money is really the root of all evil. Everyone praised Princess Yue's thought. The main character had a different opinion about it. This girl seems to be doing well in her studies. He doesn't think money is the root of all evil. At least you can't blame all evil on them. The system told the host that if he wanted to cheat, he needed to use the glasses to get all the knowledge about money. But this was not necessary. 1995 in Japan, 12 people died and more than 5,000 people were injured due to a subway gas terrorist attack. The culprit is Asahara Zhenhuan, who is the head of the sect, that then and every hair of his sold for 30,000 wen. Wasn't it because of money? Wu Songui let the Qin soldiers pass. Of course he wanted Chen Yuan, not dollars. And later, he became the king of Yunnan, and he also got the Chen Yuan. But then, why did he want to become emperor? Wasn't it because of money? He decided to answer the last question. He asked what was the source of greed and sodomy before money was invented. The girls asked him if he was flirting with Princess Yue. Another girl wanted him to tease her better. The real source of evil is the greed that has taken root in the hearts of men. The debates were interesting and they can learn something from them. But the bell has already rung, so that's all for today. The girl approached Yue, saying something that this Xiao Luo has character. She doesn't think his intentions were bad. Therefore, the girl offered to forgive him. There's no way she's going to do that. She doesn't care if he's the bodyguard her father sent or not. She's not just going to let him go. After all, this guy was the reason she looked so stupid today. She was on the phone with Fu Jiawei. He must embarrass him tonight as cruelly as he could. If he continues with his nonsense about gentlemanliness and the like, he should expect no mercy from her afterward. Since he had decided to go against her, this time she would show him how to be arrogant. How dare that loser offend his Yu? Let his dear princess only wait, Fady, he will not let her down. She approached the protagonist, talking about how there was going to be a party today to celebrate his transition. So the girl asked if he wanted to come. Xiao Luo thought that she had taken the wrong pills, if her attitude had changed so much in such a short time. It didn't bode well, so he wanted to refuse. But the girl interrupted him and said they would be there at 6 o'clock today. He must come to the school gate, and then they would ride together. She had called him Xiao's bodyguard, and now he should definitely come. The guy didn't realize if this girl knew who he was or if she was just testing him. As arranged, he got there, but 30 minutes had already passed. The teacher noticed that a new student was standing there. She asked why he was there. He came just in time because they needed a third. They are going to go play LOL. Xiao Luo asked, but don't you need 5 people for this game? It was 7 o'clock on the clock. That kid at school had hurt her feelings, so she'd made him wait an hour. The girl apologized for being late, for she was fancying herself, but there was no one there. She called the dean's office back and asked what the new student's phone number was. He got back to the place at 9 o'clock. The girls told him to come play LOL some more. Yuki told him to get in the car. The protagonist mentioned that she was late. The girl replied that the time was taken to choose clothes and makeup. In response, the guy replied that he had waited for her for a whole 30 minutes. She admitted her guilt and told him to finally shut up. Zhou Villa. They were expecting Princess Yue. The girl replied that the protagonist of tonight is Xiao. If the reception is bad, he will have to pay for it. Princess Yue said that Xiao Luo was handsome and a good guy. Now he can see that she was completely right. He asked him to go inside and not stand outside. The protagonist did not understand, and why such politeness. So the boy suggested that they go, because 7 can't wait for one. He wanted to watch them bring themselves to the bottom. The man called Shulan and Yin Yin to him. After all, Princess Yue is already here. The girls came up and greeted the princess. She warned the princess that Fu Jiawei had a very scary dog. They're so scared. So the princess must help them let out their anger. Shu Yue told Fu Jiawei to bring the dog that scared little Shulan here. He clapped his hands together, and his dog was brought here. The protagonist told the girl to stand behind because this dog is ferocious and it can bite someone. That kid really is a coward. Isn't that dog just acting out to scare you? She pushed him away and called him a coward. How could he be so frightened of an ordinary dog? But suddenly dog went off the chain and wanted to bite the girl. Of course, the protagonist didn't let that happen. But that didn't seem to stop the dog. But when he looked at the kid, his opinion immediately changed. He ran up to his master and bit him. He apologized to the princess for not being able to help her. The girl there was just sitting there bewildered. They helped her up and put her in a chair, asking about whether to call a personal physician. The girl replied that she was fine and they could go. It will sit here for a while. Looks like the princess isn't going to let this kid go just yet. He, on the other hand, was thinking about Chu Yue having a panic attack. So he said he would take her home. She should rest now. She replied that it shouldn't be done. Yin Yin will take care of Princess Yue, and he is the main character tonight, so she wanted to take him out to play. He realized that these girls had some other plans for him, so he wondered, and what they were going to play. They play pool there, so she suggested we go and watch. He wondered what she was up to. Others noticed the Doe's sister, so people immediately realized that something interesting was going to happen. Shu Du borrowed his cue. She assumed that this handsome man knew how to play billiards, and the protagonist replied that she had once played pool 8. Then she proposed a bet. If he earned 1 point, then the 50,000 yuan on that card would be his. The girl asked his opinion on the matter. In the event of his defeat, he won't be able to pay it back. It's not a problem. If he's losing, then let him wrap it up and get out of here. He decided to let the lady go ahead. The others thought that guy was crazy. Sister Doe is very good at playing pool. He opened the system and asked if there were any suitable skills to exchange. The system reported that for 700 points, a skill was available for exchange called Pool Professionalism. But the system did not allow an exchange, because the user now has 695 points. The exchange cannot be made due to insufficient points. Shu Do decided to show him how to play. Everyone was supporting Sister Doe, which was expected of a sister. The others suggested that this guy kneel in front of the Doe sister. The girl replied that it was only a demonstration. Now it was Xiao Luo's turn. It looked like he would have to use his own strength for now. Well, he didn't know how to play it. Others said if he couldn't, he should just give up and not waste their time. But men don't say no. Still, if he really can't do it, then let him just admit it. There was some kind of thing on the thin end. He asked the others if anyone knew how to hold that stick. The others didn't understand what the hell he was doing right now. If he really can't do it, he shouldn't waste time. He couldn't even hold a cue properly. He's really never played one of these. The balloon flew upwards for some reason. She thought the guy was a fool. But it wasn't that simple, for he hit the red balls. People didn't understand how it could work at all. Was he a fucking god and this guy was just playing dumb? The system reported that the users made 20 people highly doubtful and got 33 points for it. After that, he exchanged the points for the billiard master skill. The system reported that the exchange was successful and the users got the billiard master skill, and he had 28 points left. She hadn't realized her younger brother could hide his abilities so well, so she suggested playing a regular game. If he won, she would give him another 50,000 yuan. The protagonist wondered what would happen if he rolled all the balls. If he rolls all the balls, she'll be off 30 miles away from the guy every time she sees him. Shudo wondered what would happen if he didn't roll. Then the protagonist agrees to be her doggy. Shudo replied that he was overconfident. He decided to start. His white ball hit the red one, and he successfully rolled it. The girl was already asking for him to screw up. At the same time, the guy reminded her not to forget their arrangement, and so he decided to continue. With one white ball, he rolled all the other red balls. The protagonist told her to remember to transfer enough money to the card. That kid's gonna regret this. He turned back to Princess Yue. Since Xiao Luo wanted to go home, he told her to drive him. She clearly didn't like that attitude, but she was stopped. The girl dialed Fu Jiawei's number. Does he really think that Princess Yue is his personal driver? Let him go back on his own. He apologized to the princess for not being able to entertain her well, but he asked for a moment of her attention, for he wanted to introduce someone to her, and that person was Hua Hyphen of the Hua Hai group. He admires the princess very much. so he asked me to introduce him to her. If that man blabbed everything, his identity as a bodyguard would be revealed, so he decided to leave. He introduced Princess Chu Yue. Afterward, the man wanted to introduce a guy next to her who was seemingly poor, but they noticed Xiao Luo was missing. But after that, they did see where he was. It gave them a bit of a shock. The protagonist was behind him, preparing to hit him with a bottle. And he did. Xiao Luo explained that he already knew this guy, and he had been harassing old ladies since a long time ago. He also wondered who let him in here in the first place. She found it quite interesting. Fu Jiawei wondered if he was really doing such a thing, though it didn't matter at all. After all, this man was his honored guest, so he can't just let it go. He called the guard over and said that this guy dared to touch his guest, so he ordered him kicked out. The protagonist replied that there was no need for that, as he was about to leave himself. Fu Jiawei asked Yin Yin if she had lost anything today. The girl replied that she had lost her necklace, which was very expensive. So the guy decided to help her in her search. Princess Yue noticed that their romance is pretty obvious. They don't even hide it. Each must be searched before camping until the Yin Yin necklace is found. This time, Fu Jiawei had gone too far. They grabbed the kid, talking about aiding the search and taking off all his clothes. They're trying to get him naked in front of people, even though he wanted to leave nicely, so they asked for it. He swung his foot to strike that man, and with his hand, he grabbed the other guard, after which he sent 2 men at once into the flight. Shu Yue specifically called him here. That means it's all her antics. But he sensed something. The system has sent him an urgent assignment. He needs to track down a mysterious shadow, and the reward is 300 points if he succeeds. 300 points will be deducted if he fails. If the points are not enough, the system will take away one random skill of the user. He immediately chased after that shadow. This guy's too fast, and if he relaxes even for a moment, he'll lose sight of him. He decided to turn around. They crossed glances. The protagonist noticed that it was taking too long. This task is too difficult to accomplish. 15 minutes later. Still, the protagonist successfully followed him. He immediately ran over there. There were bodyguards there, but he ran between them. He was holding a gun. This kid managed to take the guns away from the bodyguards. He was already being followed by the main character. He took everything to the roof of the building. But there was no one there anymore. It was now clear that someone was targeting Chu Yue. He ordered to go straight to Fu Jiawei's villa. After which, the guy reported that Chu Yue was in danger. She didn't expect that Xiao Luo would turn out to be a bit interesting. Therefore, she decided to find a way to soften their relationship. Although he deserved it, but suddenly someone covered her mouth. She asked for someone to come to her rescue, but she thought of her father first, and her pleas were answered. This blow caused the attacker to loosen his grip. He recognized that it was really not bad, after which the unknown man decided to flee. Xiao Luo realized that he knew exactly when Chu Yue unpa. There seems to be a rat among the people around her. Meanwhile, the girl was trying to recover from that. She noticed the guy paying attention to her. Another man arrived, and the protagonist was ready to kill him. The man said he was his own. Guy ordered to take the princess back home, and not to forget to report everything to Mr. Chu as well. He suspects that there are spies lodged among Chu Yue's entourage. 3 hours later, the girl lay alone in bed. They decided to have a smoke. Looks like the person who hit him was really named Xiao Luo. Could it be that weak-willed loser? He also had a girlfriend he'd been dating for 4 years, and she was untouched. He took a pill. The only question was how he got close to the princess. And how can a guy follow orders with this guy hanging around? It's easier to get rid of him. That's why we should take one bodyguard with us. That way he won't be able to get away with it. Hua Haifeng and Fu Jiawei helped the drunken Yin Yin to the living room. She lathered her body and all the dirty clothes were put away and her body was wiped. The next day, the guy knows that the princess likes the Suli star. That's why he invited her to perform at the concert next week. He said hello to Xiao Luo. Apparently, he lost out on love and decided to hide out in college. After all, the girls didn't even expect that their Xiao Luo had been abandoned by someone. Therefore, they wondered how they were related. Perhaps he needs a lady to calm his young mind. Is his identity still unrevealed? Sent the old ones. We need to knock him out before he says anything. But unfortunately for him, he took a martial arts master with him. That's why he stopped that punch. How interesting it was to see him have an inside skill. His inner skill is completely overpowering, but this guy simply blocked it out. The man replied that he was not so simple and should not be provoked. He apologized for the many bad things his master had done. He's here to apologize to him. Apparently, he was just trying to get off easy. She hadn't expected this man to fly. The protagonist replied that they would leave the martial arts show. He also advised to just ignore them. I don't think he's taking them for fools, but it's not that simple. He asked the system what skill the man was using. The system replied that this ability is in the martial arts called Kui. In order to open the possibility of exchanging such abilities, you need to summon and complete additional tasks. He inquired as to how he was going to trigger these additional assignments, but the user has to be the most patient to recognize it. This system has some emotional bang for the buck. It's too toxic. A week later, stadium. The main character was in a sports uniform and carrying a soccer ball. The girls, as true lovers of all things beautiful, realized he was their ideal when they first saw this guy. The other girls ran up to him. He told them not to come here, but no one listened to him. Meanwhile, the girl wondered if it was Xiao Luo who had saved her that night. A friend came up to her and asked her what Princess Yue was looking at. She assumed that she liked Xiao Luo because she was staring at him so much. Xu Yue asked how she could even like that bully. Meanwhile, their conversation was overheard by the blonde man. He approached the protagonist. As it turns out, this guy's name is Du Pengfei. He didn't have anyone to fight with, so he asked the protagonist to help him out. The protagonist hasn't really expressed himself yet, as he's already taken the ball. He's the best in the game, so he'll put this upstart in his place. That punch was called the Tiger Punch. Because of this punch, a guy broke his leg last week. Is there some kind of feud between Xiao Luo and Du Pengfei? The teacher shouted for Du Pengfei to stop. Xu Yue also paid attention to the shouting. Surprisingly, she also began to worry about Xiao Luo. But it wasn't hard for him to take that groove. They didn't understand how Xiao Luo was able to take this punch so easily. It really was amazing. The girls, on the other hand, supported the protagonist. The blonde boy also didn't understand how this kid was able to take his punch. Xiao Luo memorized his name. The protagonist wondered if Du Pengfei would be able to take his punch. He tossed the ball with a smile on his face that he had already immediately disappeared from sight. It flew by really fast, right next to the guy. It was such a powerful shot that it even made it through the goal. The blonde man fell to his knees. The guy stated that he would not misfire next time. Suddenly, he heard the very loud cheers of a Su Li star who had arrived in their town to give a concert. Everyone immediately turned their attention to Su Li's poster. Her beauty even amazed Xiao Luo himself. At the concert, the girl showed tin signifiers to keep them all quiet. There was immediate silence. She began to sing her song. Others shouted the singer's name. Underneath all the shouting, she only had eyes for one person. Specifically on the main character. The girl thought that the kid noticed that she was looking at him. But the boy's gaze fell on Hua Hanfeng. It seemed to her that he was coming this way. The guy replied that he would be leaving early, so she should remember to watch her safety. She heard the lines of the song about how the parting was unforgettable. So why wasn't she looking for a meeting? Maybe was busy laughing and crying, or chasing after heavenly fashions. He said to take her to the hotel and he'd take care of the rest. He asked Hua Hongfeng if everything would be all right. She's not an ordinary girl. The boy wondered if they were the ones leaking information to Mr. Chu's enemies. Apparently, they want to launch an attack on Chu Yue again. They all discussed the fact that Su Li has a wonderful voice. So it was not surprising that she was the most popular star. No one expected her to come to them in concert. They also wondered whether they should go to get an autograph. No one even knows who could be the husband of the folk goddess. The protagonist noticed the license plate number, so he asked the chauffeur to follow that car with that license plate number. 15 minutes later, he came to one place right behind that car. In the distance, he thought it was Chu Yue, but she should be at the concert. Fu Jiawei replied that her agent asked her to take her to a hotel so she could rest there. He put down the stack of money and asked which room the two men went to. But there's no way she's gonna reveal information about the guest in room 1502. All the girl covered her eyes as he ran to that very room. As he ran down the hallway, he heard cries for help. He found the right number, after which the protagonist kicked in the doors. Fu Jiawei fell down and lay under the door, and Hua Hanfen sat on the bed. He obviously didn't expect to see Xiao Luo here. The guy wondered if the three of them had also decided to have some fun. Hua Hanfeng started to explain that they hadn't done anything yet, and even if they hadn't already used drugs, they had taken Su Li and not Chu Yue that he was protecting. Now he should definitely give them a good beating so that they wouldn't even have such a thought in their minds. He asked the protagonist to stop. Xiao Luo had only one goal. He only smiled and stepped exactly where he wanted to go. He really thought that they had taken Chu Yue and had in no way expected to meet a folk star here. Sending her to the hospital while she's under the influence of these drugs will leave a stain on her career. She was very hot. The website said that poisoned aphrodisiacs should be given plenty of water. Vigorous exercise will also help, or you can just wait until the effects go away on their own. There were also sleeping pills on the table. If it doesn't work, he'll just put her under a cold shower. The girl was lying in short clothes, talking about being very hot. Her face was red. He swallowed and was once again convinced of her beauty. He thinks he is one such fool to give her sleeping pills at a time like this. He gives her the pill, telling her that everything will be fine when she wakes up. But the girl hugged him. This girl is fiddling in a half-sleep. She has to realize she's playing with fire. There's no way the guy's taking advantage. When she touched the one place she didn't need to, he laid her down on the bed and just decided to wait for the effect to wear off on its own. He's just putting it out there like it's nothing he can do. But her hand stopped him, and he accidentally fell on her chest. He can't help himself from being so close. After much heated discussion. So it's a little early, and she doesn't even know if it's a good thing. And that kid really can't do it. This woman doesn't understand anything. The other creature was recording all the events. There were tears in her eyes, and she asked me not to. There was a volcanic eruption. Xu Yue started a conversation regarding Xiao Luo, the bodyguard her father had sent to her. Father must know where he lives, so she asked him to tell her exactly where he lived. But the man replied that he could not say so, for Xiao's brother was a master whom he could only invite with great difficulty. He won't let his daughter bother him. The girl asks if she looks like she's being unreasonable. She just wants to give him the invitation to her birthday party. He replied that she was just that kind of person, and the girl started asking him again. Eventually, her father gave in and told her the address, just so she wouldn't distract him from his work. This time she'll get her way. She can't believe this kid is still so cold to her. She walked up to apartment 250, where Xiao Luo's name was, but a disguised Su Li came out of the apartment. She clearly didn't expect to see all the girls here. Su Li just walked past while tears appeared in Chu Yue's eyes. The invitation fell from her hands, after which she ran away, calling him a bastard. Meanwhile, the protagonist woke up and didn't realize what he was doing last night. The system was glad that the younger brother realized he was a beast. He seized the moment. He seduced the girl. The system seemed to gloat again, but the system just kept him with human emotion. Now we can celebrate that he finally slept with someone. Also, the system gave him a love triangle assignment. Chu Yue was attacked downstairs. He has to solve the problem within 3 minutes, and will be rewarded with 100 points. And if he fails, the system will take away one random skill. It will simply make him cease to be human. The system will call him an animal for the last time. This system's got some serious headaches, but he wondered, and where that girl had gone. The system asked how the little bastard could say she had a problem with her head. He should go down the stairs and turn left. His yellow panties are too loose, so he should remember to pull them up. He had just arrived on the scene, in his underwear. He finally got a chance to get to Miss Chu. The protagonist immediately kicked him in the face, saying that he was death-seeking. His face was pressed into the wall. The system appreciates a little Luo walking around in striped panties in broad daylight. He mentally told this system to shut up. The protagonist asked this guy who told him to come here. He replied that a pool of black water could swallow both the heavens and the earth. This boy can consider himself dead already. Xiao Luo inquired about another pool of black water. 2 guards immediately rushed over to Brother Xiao. Thanks to the protagonist, everything ended safely again. The system praised the little Luo and gave him a reward of 100 points. The user's art of running in just his underwear shocked the people around him, so he received 250 points. The little Luo seemed to have taken a liking to the bunny panties. He mentally shut the damn system up again. The system reported that this animal currently had 741 points. It emphasized the word animal. The main character said to ask the boss if he knew anything about the pool of black water that would swallow the heavens and earth. He took the clothes from the poor guard and left. It's Chu Wei's birthday in the morning. Today his job as a bodyguard would be finished. So the man asked if her boyfriend wanted to continue working for him. The kid didn't understand what had happened, because it hadn't even been a month yet. His adversary had weakened imperceptibly, but he might take this chance to deal with him. If it weren't for his little girl's birthday, he wouldn't have left a wet spot on him. He asked the gentleman to accept his congratulations. He also inquired if the gentleman had learned anything from those words. The man reported that they were referring to black water, namely to a large transnational criminal organization. Suddenly, a subordinate arrived to them and gave them bad news. Blondie reported that a group of mercenaries entered the city yesterday. This group is the Red Scorpion from the Black Water Company. They immediately began to worry about Chu Yue. The protagonist immediately wanted to hit the road. Blondie threw the keys to his car, which was right at the entrance. With the car, he would be able to track the location of Ms. He also informed Mr. Chu that it might be a little noisy. He asked to adjust this with his influence. Looks like the other side has secret support. Meanwhile, there was a sniper there. Walter was told to fire at the signal to fire at the bodyguards around the target. While they are confused, the others will grab the target and quickly retreat. Walter relayed that he had accepted the assignment and could see the target. He took them in his crosshairs. Everyone was on standby. They heard the report back. At the end of the report, he fired a shot. A few minutes later, suburban roads. He hoped it wasn't too late. As he was approaching his destination, he heard explosions somewhere not far away, so he stopped. He decided to get rid of the sniper first. And then a few seconds later, he found the sniper lying in the grass. Sniper wondered if this was the wench who helped the organization deliver messages. Looks pretty good. He was also surprised by the figures in the Chinese women. He pulled out a knife and quietly killed the sniper. The radio said it was a success, so Walter should prepare to evacuate. The boy reported that he was dead. The boy was then told that he would pay for his deed. Xiao Luo asked, and what price would he pay for it? He drew his weapon and took aim. They'll still look at who's gonna pay for what. Xu Yue was so kind to Xu Yuan after all, and didn't understand why she was doing this. Xu Do replied that no one had asked her and her father to cross the road of the Black Water Organization. The man was informed that the Voltaire was in trouble. Therefore, they must evacuate the target immediately. He reported that something had happened to Walter, so they need to back off. They started running away, but the hare was shot. The two men immediately noticed that the hare was not on their team. The hare replied that he had not yet collected enough tickets, after which his leg was also shot. The man said to leave him here and he should run with purpose from here. He's gonna kill that bastard for sure. The main character showed up and said that the guy ran away, leaving him here. If this is what they call a fraternity, he wondered where the guy who had left him here had gone. The white-haired guy asked if the bastard had shot him in the leg and didn't kill him immediately, only to use him to hunt down the others later. Does this idiot think he doesn't realize such obvious things? He shot to kill the protagonist, but he got out of the bullet's path. Xiao Luo asked, could it be he has seen all sorts of dramas? Looks like he will have to get his hands dirty after all. But it doesn't matter because they killed so many bodyguards. Although he wouldn't even let them go even just for kidnapping Chu Yue. Looks like this guy was hiding around here somewhere. It had just recently rained and there should have been footprints on the ground. And his hunch was confirmed. No one's running away from him. And now he's found the kidnapper. He jumped and immediately hit his Togo man. The man began to fall and Chu Yue followed him as well. He hit a tree. She fell to the ground. But suddenly, the protagonist noticed that there were still people running here. Therefore, he took the girl and started running. Chu Yue shouted for him to let her go. Xiao Luo tried to reassure her that it was him. She asked if he had really come to save her. He told her to just shut up. She should also hold on to it tighter. He would want to conserve his strength. The rabbit informed the principal that this guy had shot her earlier. Also, the rabbit asked why he could jump 2 meters high with a girl in his arms. That's not fair. If this rabbit got shot, it must be a robot of some sort. They heard a scream, so they ran toward that sound. The girl wondered if he had jumped so high to scare her to death. She should stop yelling already. Does she really want to die that badly? She mentioned the girl who was in the room with him, and him. He, however, replied that it was too noisy. He needs to hide her, or they'll both die. And there he is, finding a hiding place. He told her to lie down here and hide, and he would deal with the pursuers. He gave her a tube so she could breathe underwater. After which, he told her to dive under the water. She must not come out until he called out to her. Now, he was interested to see who would hunt who this time. The man spotted the tracks and informed the others that they must be around somewhere. The girl herself was underwater. He admitted that it was very strange. These people have been following them for so long, but have not been able to catch even a shadow of them. This guy is really good at hiding with ballast on his hands. He's really got skills. And he didn't even notice he'd stepped into the trap. The main character caught this blonde guy, after which he said to contact them immediately. But in the end, of course, death still awaited him. A man arrived and informed the hawk that the red ghost was missing. Oddly, the location of the ghost is marked next to it. Xiao Luo jumped straight at him. Then he stabbed him. He picked up the walkie-talkie, talking about there being 11 more to go. That bastard is slowly getting rid of everyone. And now he's already found his new victims. 10 bangs left. 9 people. 8 people. 7 people. He found 3 men and killed them. That left 4. 3. 2. And that's the last one left. Have they not brought so many men into action? Then the colonel must be with them. Therefore this man should call for him now to save him. But men weren't going to do that, unless only in his dreams. The skills of the protagonist best them and their death is a foregone conclusion. But the Blackwater will not leave him alive. After that, he dealt with the last man. Xiao Luo advised her to take off her dress afterward, otherwise she would get sick. He also gave her the cell phone that the girl's father had previously given him. Also, she must not tell other people about his occupation, and he'll be the first to go. Now the situation is clear. They won't bother Mr. Chu anymore. And if Ms. remembers anything, they should contact the police. The man thanked him for his work. He asked Len Zuo to escort Mr. Policeman. He probably knew his little girl was tired, so she should rest. He was glad the girl was safe. She, on the other hand, was thinking about the fact that she had to get Xiao Luo. She also recognized his beauty. They will still see who will make who blush. The man reported that he escorted the police officers. Tomorrow he will invite Brother Xiao to the Chanshan Pavilion. So Len Zuo must organize everything well there to thank the protagonist. Chun Shangai. He can take whatever he wants because everyone here is his own. The man thanked the protagonist for saving his little girl. Xiao Luo replied that he had just done his job. She had paid attention to her father's words that everyone here was an outsider. So it didn't matter that he was just a bodyguard, and she was a rich man's daughter. The man brought the documents that the boss had asked him to prepare. He recently bought a company, and it was short of a manager. So he offered the kid the position. Suddenly the director of the Hua Hai group, who is the father of Hua Hanfen, rushed in. He ordered Xiao Luo to be brought here immediately, for he wanted to avenge his son. The man stood up and inquired as to what he wanted to do. The one replied that Xiao Luo had maimed his son, and asked if he couldn't cripple him back. He is only a bodyguard. Is Chu Yunzhong really going to protect him? But the man doesn't care what the protagonist did about it. Mr. Hua can't do as he pleases in Mr. Chu's pavilion. Such actions by Mr. Hua humiliate him. So he ordered the blonde boy to escort him out of here. But he didn't wait for someone to throw him out and just said the man couldn't protect him everywhere. For now, they would leave. He ordered a subordinate to tell Lun San Kui that he agreed. But in exchange, he wanted that person to bring him Xiao Luo's head. The kid thanked Mr. Chu for his protection. But these are small things to a man, so he decided to continue. It's hard to find a man you can trust completely. But he trusts the protagonist. And he also needs a job. Although the job is very good, he still hopes to climb the career ladder on his own. If he accepts the offer, he will become the actual manager of the Luo fan company. The man only needs a dividend of 20%, and the rest of the profits are his. The kid asked for time to think, so the man agreed to give him 3 days. After that, they started drinking. He asked the system why on earth it felt nothing after the murders. The system, after all, told little Luo that the mercenary king physique he used back then against the scorpion included the psychological quality of a mercenary king. So this is a normal phenomenon. He was called back to him by a blonde guy who told the kid he wanted to talk to him. And that's something serious. He had heard that Xiao Luo was recently working as a bodyguard for a rich lady, so the blonde man asked how he was doing. The guy replied that he was fine. Chu Yunzhong is a good person. He mentioned that at least his little one would be fighting for another 20 years. The protagonist wondered where he was going with this. Last time he said that Zhao Menqi went to Hua Hanfeng. That's the time he saved the girl. He decided to get straight to the point and showed a picture of another girl. The man also asked what he thought of her. That Zhang Dashan has such good taste. He said she was quite feminine. His friend is obviously blind. This old hag is the blonde boy's immediate superior. Every damn day she creates difficult situations to set him up. The protagonist wondered what kind of employee would carry around a picture of his boss. Since he cannot leave work, and his friend's house is closer, he asked to live with him. Suddenly a call came back to him. He asked his brother if he could come over for dinner tomorrow night. He wants to introduce him to the best girl in the hotel, so he should definitely come. The main character immediately guessed him, and told his sister about his breakup with Zhao Menqi. Dashan replied that he just wanted to get along with Zhu Yi. After the protagonist introduced him to his sister and he started playing Dodichu at night, Dashan asked if the guy doesn't know him. Once he picks up a card, he can't stop. Zhu Yi replied to Xiao Yu that her brother is really just handsome. She will make sure of it tomorrow when she sees him. Sun Yu only sat there embarrassed. The main character wanted to go in the same clothes, but if he's going on a date, you need someone to work on his image. 6 o'clock at night, he arrived in his new look. Still, the man Dashan found is very reliable. He made the protagonist into a real beauty. After which they came to the girls. Zhu and replied that her brother was late. She also told San Yu to introduce herself. Fortunately, she asked Dashan to take Xiao Luo to dress up. Otherwise, given his character, it's not even clear what he would be able to cross over in. To begin with, she decided to clarify the situation and asked the long-faced Zhang why he was here. But it was Zhu, and asked him to dress up his brother. Dashan realized that she likes to pretend. Xiao Luo holds back laughter at being called long-faced. Sun Yu shyly introduced herself. The guy welcomed her too. She loves him. Sister drags people on blind dates. She offered to chat while they ate. The blonde man replied that he didn't mind granting the beautiful girl's wish. The protagonist realized they were in it for one thing. 2 hours later, Sun Yu realized that she had gotten carried away and had eaten too much seafood. Shu asked his brother how he felt about Sun Yu. The protagonist replied that she was a very nice girl, but Xiao Luo thought that he had no need to fall in love right now. Ju was already full, and so she asked the long-faced man to take her home. The blonde replied to have her husband Tan Zhen drive her, but then he saw her angry expression, and the girl took him away with her so as not to disturb her brother. She also told him to escort Sun Yu home. The two walked away on purpose, leaving them alone. The girl replies that her house is up ahead nearby. Since there are no lights on the street, he walks her to the stairs. Still, he promised his sister that he would get her home safely. Suddenly, the man ran away screaming for help. As it turned out, it was her uncle. The man also heard her words. It was just in the nick of time. Now her uncle's debts will be on her. Sun Yu asked who they were. The man replied that it didn't matter what they did to him, but they mustn't touch his niece. The man punched him in the face, telling him to shut up. They were holding a crying girl. Sun Jiangnan's niece is not bad at all. That's why the man offered to give her away to pay off his debt, or he'll go quietly into the river to feed the fish for the night. She asked Xiao Luo's brother for help. The guy reported that he filmed the whole thing. If they don't want the protagonist to call the police, they should stop everything now. Does this kid really think he can threaten him with this video? If he wants them to stop all this, he should just pay the 2 million he lost in the gambling hall. Xiao Luo replied that he had nothing to do with this man and didn't understand why he should pay for him. Moreover, he didn't even have that much money. But since he knows the man's niece, he can't ignore what happened. He asked him to give him half an hour, and then he would give him 2 million chips to zero out his debt. In their casino, the minimum bet is 10,000 yuan. So the man asked if he could afford it. The protagonist took out a card and mentioned that it had 100,000 yuan on it. Isn't that enough? She asked the man not to go. These people own this casino, so he can't win. Besides, he doesn't know each other, only money, so he doesn't have to deal with it. The protagonist told her not to worry, because he never does what he is not sure of. He asked the system if there were any skills for gambling. The system reported that he could trade a skill called Gambling Professionalism for 600 points. He has 818 points. Also, a little Luo is preventing him from watching a soap opera. He decided to trade. If little Luo interferes with him when he is watching the play, he will die. 30 minutes later, he ordered a car to be brought here. They're going straight to the casino. Here they are. Once in here, there's no escape. The OBV hero said to trade for chips. Sun Yu asked how she could repay him for that. Uncle also said that there is no turning back now. He will take the consequences, so he should take Sun Yu and run. But you don't have to worry, because he's here. He got 100,000 chips. He noticed that the bones had fallen. 4, 5, 6, high stack. He bet everything. And the guy did win, the man said, placing a bet. He bet his winnings. 1, 2, 3 low stacks. Surveillance room. They thought this kid was cheating. Well, so far he hasn't noticed anything. The employee told the managing Jen that this guy had already won 1.6 million. The manager has ordered a change of men. They must put the bone throwers in Jew. The man apologized, but he had somewhere urgent to go, so he asked to wait a minute. He decided to take the dealer's place at once. The man asked for a bet. Panin realized something was wrong. This dealer was tampering with the dice. The girl asked her younger brother what he would bet on. The man also asked his brother what he would choose. Sun Yu wondered if something was wrong. The dealer also wondered why the guy was suddenly hesitant if he had been betting quickly before. Xiao Luo replied as if he didn't know why. He wondered if this kid had noticed his cheating. She was already thought she had met a lucky star today and would be able to bet after her. He turned to his uncle to do something later. The man wondered if it would work. The protagonist replied to just do as he said. Uncle shouldn't worry. Only he decides which bet is played. Any more than that, he can't win. The manager came out and reported to the younger brother that his 30 minutes were up. But the protagonist replied that it was all right, for he would win. The dealer again told the players to place their bets. High stack. He wanted that kid to lose all his money, but suddenly everyone started yelling that he had won. Therefore, Xiao Luo is returning 2 million chips to them. He also asked that they credit the rest to his card. Of course, he thanked manager Gino. They thanked the main character. The uncle also said that if there was anything he could do for him, he should call any time. But this casino isn't exactly easy. He won this time, so he has to be careful. The girl offered to take a cab and go somewhere. Well, the man began to assure them that he would be fine. He can handle them. The security guard asked the manager if they were going to leave it like that. That's impossible. They're a casino, not a charity agency. He's ordered me to round up all the guys who can fight. They're also supposed to ambush that girl's house. After that, they're gonna let that kid have an unforgettable experience. Uncle will head home and give their good news, so they may not be expecting him. Also, he doesn't play. Told him not to gamble anymore, because it's not good. The man replied that he knew that. Xiao Luo told her to get in the car and he would escort her home. The girl asked the chauffeur to lend her a pen and paper. She wrote that she owed Xiao Luo 2 million yuan. Sun Yu also signed her name. She would definitely return the money to him. The guy replied that it was not worth it. He didn't lose anything from it and even on the contrary earned 500,000. But she must repay or she will feel guilty. He had no choice but to agree. That girl is too stubborn. She's actually quite attractive. She also asked the main character how he knew how many points would be on the dice. The guy replied that it was just luck. Then perhaps she should stay close to him. Maybe her luck would get better then too. He only laughed at the suggestion that it was possible. They're here. The girl replied that she lived here. Xiao Luo noted that it was getting a little late, so he would return home as well. She asked for his cell phone. The guy gave her his cell phone, and now they have each other's contacts. And now he can definitely go. He said goodbye to her. No sooner had the guy gotten far away than he was already expected. The man recognized that he had skills. Few people can make more than 2 million from 100,000 yuan. However, the manager isn't too happy about it, so the man has to show what a bloodbath means. They've been asked to teach this kid some sense. He's in a good mood today and doesn't want to fight, so he told them to leave here nicely. It's amazing that this sucker can still pretend he can do anything, so they should wipe that arrogance off his face. The blonde man picked up the phone from Xiao Luo. The protagonist told him to come and pick him up in the form. Here's a situation where he can't take a cab. Dashan told him to wait a bit. He wondered what had happened to the main character there. Xiao Luo replied that it was just an ordinary skirmish between gangsters. Nothing out of the ordinary. He suggested they go to eat hot pot and they'd talk there. Then it will be Xiao Luo's treat today. Afterward, they moved into the restaurant. Xiao Luo is really awesome because he defended Chu Yunxiong's daughter this month. Chu Yunxiong is Jianchen's richest man. Blondie asked if that man wanted to make the main character his son-in-law and why he wanted to give the company to him. He also inquired if his daughter was beautiful. Xiao Luo asked how he knew that Chu Yunxiong wanted to hand over the company to him. Blondie did say that if the protagonist of her rise, he would stick with it. To tell you the truth, he hasn't decided whether to accept it or not. He wants to set up his own business, though he doesn't know what kind yet. Yes, he'd do it. He could try it, but he doesn't know what to do yet. Xiao Luo asked if he was fine. Can't that dude see what's going on behind him? That noise is gonna burst his eardrums. I thought they said this kid was funny. He's just dying laughing. He stopped the employee. The guy also explained that he was uncomfortable sitting here because of the noise. So he asked if she could do something about it. The girl said to wait a minute. She asked Sir if he could move to another table. He's disturbing the other guests. If she wants him to move, she has to kiss him and he will. She just has to do it and there won't be a problem. The blonde man told the pretty girl not to talk to those bastards, and he would handle it himself. Still, he agreed to move here and asked if he would whine anymore. This guy was starting to get on his nerves, but he agreed. After 40 minutes, the blonde man asked Xiao if he was full. The protagonist replied that he was, after which he took the food and dumped it all on that kid. Dashan asked, did he really think he would just leave it at that? Now that arrogant bastard wouldn't be so arrogant. He was in a good mood today, but that bastard ruined it. Believe it or not, Blondie's gonna make sure he doesn't see the sunlight tomorrow. Xiao Luo decided to stop him. If he continued, he would have to be sent to the hospital. If he notices this kind of behavior from that bastard again, he's a goner. He asked again what the protagonist had decided, whether he was going to run the company or not. The boy replied that he hadn't decided yet. He really doesn't understand why his friend is slowing down. Chu Yunxiong is giving him the company to run, not asking him to buy it. The protagonist told him to watch the road, and he remembered that he could try to buy out Luo Fan's company. Dashan asked what he was saying there. Xiao Luo told him to focus on the road. He also told the blonde man that he would go with him to the Chongshan pavilion tomorrow. Could it be that now he too could go up with his friend? And then there was an accident. I thought he said to watch the road. The blonde realized he was going to say yes. That asshole is sick of him. So they're going home to talk. The next morning, he told his friend to wait by the door. He would be back soon. Dashan said if he could, let him buy him an orange. He apologized for being late. The man asked the protagonist if he had finally made up his mind. The kid replied that's exactly what it was and asked to look into it. It was a receipt in which Xiao Luo wants to borrow 600 million yuan from Chu Yunxun. The The repayment term is 1 year. The monthly interest rate is 3%. Mr. Chu spent 550 million to buy Luo Fan's company. He wants to buy this company from him for 600 million. According to his research and estimation, at the moment, Luo Fan is only making a loss, about 300,000 yuan a day. This company can be called a hot potato, because no one will have an easy time with it. So the man wonders why on earth he wants to buy out this company. The protagonist was confident in his powers, and that he could revive her. Even Mr. Chu doesn't know if he can bring back her greatness, so he wondered why the guy was so confident. Xiao Luo replied that the company's problem is not only its reputation. There are many problems in the company and the organizational component of the company. The man asked again if he was sure he could bring her back to life, but he won't answer that question. All he wants to know now is whether Mr. Chu is willing to sell Luo Fan. The man replied that this receipt for 600 million would not be enough. Is it so hard to just say yes? He's already taken on an almost impossible task. Mr. Chu asked me to promise him one thing, and then he would hand over the company to him. If he cannot pay off all his debt within a year, he will work at the Chongshan Pavilion. He agreed to it. Mr. Chu looks forward to the day when the protagonist will come to work in his pavilion. Xiao Luo replied that there would be no such thing, for he would not fail. No, when the kid came out, he threw something to his friend. Blondie asked if it was a success, but Xiao Luo replied to just go back and wait for news. Dashan asked why they couldn't just tell him how it went. 5 days later, the protagonist was informed that this afternoon, Luo Fan would officially be handed over to him. Xiao Luo shouted Dashan's name loudly to his entire apartment. The screaming made him wake up, and he thought that there was an earthquake or a fire. The protagonist asked, didn't he want to know if it had been successful then or not? Dashan saw how his friend had dressed up and assumed that he had succeeded, and he thought he could eat at the Chongshan Pavilion. No one expected that the owner of the company would change so quickly. They had also heard that the new owner was a young guy around 20 years old. They were all sure that the company was the end, especially without Chongshan's protection. After which they saw this very new owner. Girls immediately noticed his beauty. Some even thought he was more attractive than a TV star. He has a special temperament. Therefore, the girls assumed that he was a young gentleman from some noble family. You need to tell him everything, and you can't involve others. Xu Guansong greeted Mr. Xiao. At this moment, he was in charge of all of Luo Fan's affairs. The protagonist greeted the deputy director. It was a good thing he had looked at the list of supervisors beforehand. He introduced Li Zimin, who was the head of the marketing department. She also greeted Mr. Xiao. Next, Luo Qi, who is the head of the research and development department, introduced herself. She also took note of the big boss's beauty. The main character also greeted her. He also asked her to just call him Xiao Luo. Then there was Zhang Donghai, who was the director of the bakery. He is an honest and enterprising person. Donghai had heard about Mr. Xiao, and was glad that he had now met him in person. The protagonist is a talented individual with an extraordinary aura. Xiao Luo greeted him as well. Flattery is never too much, but the man thought Donghai was overreacting. Guansong asked the president if he wanted to say a few words to the department heads. Suddenly they were able to live that people were on strike, and this is the first day of President Xiao's appointment. And this is happening today. It looks like this company is really going to end soon. He wouldn't even help this Xiao Luo. The man just wanted to see how he would handle this situation as soon as possible. He suggested going up to the second floor because it was safer there. But there was no need for that, for Xiao Luo wanted to meet those people on the first floor. They all wanted to see the new president. They tried to calm them down. The protagonist clearly didn't like this strike, and we thought that for some reason he felt a sudden chill. Xiao Luo is here, and he asked why on earth they are on strike. They heard that Luo Fang had changed president, so they wanted to see it. He inquired if they were now satisfied with what they had seen. They're here because their paychecks don't match the work they've done. Can't they ask for a pay raise for their labor? Thanks to them, the company makes hundreds of millions every year. So why do they get paid so little? Luo Fang's financial budget is getting smaller and smaller, which is a big problem for Xiao Luo. These people obviously want to use the difficult situation to their advantage. This strike itself is probably just for show. He told everyone to shut up. Their minimum wage is 3,000 to 5,000. But now even department heads only get 5,000 or 6,000. He wondered if they had any common sense. And why don't they talk about the fact that when the company's profits are good, they get 230,000 yuan a month? The company only became like this because of them. If they don't ask for more now, where will they go later if the company moves away from the department? Even the man didn't know what to say to that. The new president intervened in their conversation and asked if he could ask them a couple questions. He inquired as to the salary of their position. He doesn't know what this president is going to do, but he won't be able to lie his answer to that question. He is a foreman with an average salary of 6,500 yen per month. He struggles to earn this money. So he asked the president if he thought there was any problem with it. In response, he asked what the wages of foremen at other plants were, but he doesn't know the situation in other factories. The salary of a man in his position should be 5,000 or 6,000 more. He realized that this kid was really hard to deal with. The protagonist inquired in another person how much he was getting paid per month. The guy replied that he gets somewhere around 4,000 or 5,000 a month. He asked the same question again. What are the wages in other factories? The guy replied 2,000 or 3,000 yen. In other words, the salary here is much higher than other businesses. It was unclear why he had broken the wall. Perhaps because of his anger. And the protagonist wondered what was wrong with their salaries. Now that Luo Fan is going through a bad time, if they don't want to help each other, that's fine. But they shouldn't throw stones at their own company. People should realize when they should stop and be grateful for what they already have. All of them were ashamed. Afterward, the president told them to go back to their jobs. He could forgive them this time, but if it happened again, he could not vouch for the consequences. The man explained that it was all about the saying. The company makes hundreds of millions a year. What kind of good treatment of ordinary employees can we talk about? Do they have to cram into dormitories and get tiny salaries? Everyone wants to earn a lot. He was sick of hearing it. He'd given them a chance, but they didn't want to take it. The man inquired as to what the president's instructions would be. He ordered that all of these people be fired and not to be hired by their company again in any position. It's not the best solution. Cutting so many people would destabilize the company, Xiao Luo asked, wondering if he really had to repeat his words. The man replied that he understood and would get someone to take care of it now. They asked the president not to do that. They will no longer ask for a pay raise. He tried to calm them all down, explaining that he was only trying to intimidate them. The president can't fire them, because without them, the plant would come to a standstill. He ordered security to escort the fired employees out immediately. They took his orders. He told the boss that Xiao Luo did not do the best thing. If only factory workers quit, the order will not be completed on time. The man asked if he'd noticed the guy who started it all. He probably wouldn't be the scapegoat. They all asked President Xiao to take pity on them and admitted their wrongdoing. Some had mortgages to pay, who was also willing to go back to work even at the expense of a pay cut. The man shouted for them not to be afraid. There was a big order for Luo Fan now, and without the workers it would not be completed in time. The protagonist motioned for Mr. Chu, Ji, and Manager Shu to sit down. He thinks he's firing 500 people out of place. That's why he offered to bring them all back. These people have already realized their mistake. Now all they have to do is sit back and watch Reptor. He also inquired as to the name of the instigator. It was Van Techui. He asked afterward to give his profile back. He also decided to take action. There were buses and lots of workers. He told the Zhu manager to tell security to let the buses pass. Wang Tiechui tried to calm the people down even more. The president will go out to them and beg them on his knees to come back. Without them, this factory will just stand idle. Some bunch of scum wants to threaten his brother. Dashan said that 320 skilled workers had arrived and would soon be ready to start work. He thanked them for their hard work. Everyone started throwing garbage at him, saying that they didn't lose their jobs because of that bastard. They wanted him dead. He suggested that Mr. Chu sign the agreement. Brother Xiao is young and promising, so the man thinks he can still surprise him well. Since the deed is done, they will go. It's a mess outside. Mr. Xiao should see what's going on out front. There's no need to beat people up. Still, he agreed. It was not at all clear what was going on here. Even a hare in a bikini was beating a man. He shouted for them to stop all this. People did not understand who had let the hare in here in the first place. The bunny replied that it looked like he was in the wrong place. They wondered who could have invented bikini-clad bunnies in the first place. The guy also didn't realize what the hare's identity even was, and the hare thought he was just a hare who was forced to wear a bikini. Readers have no conscience. Xiao Luo said to send him to the hospital and then send him a report. It was like people who wanted to see a human bikini were sitting there. And did he really think he could escape? They wanted to smother him, charcoal grill him, maybe even grill him. They also wondered if they could eat wild animals during an epidemic. Since everything was settled, he offered to show the gentleman his own office. They arrived at the office and told the man to go do his business. He wants to be alone. The system congratulated the user for meeting the first small goal called 100 million people. System improvements were made and unlocked the ability to both on ancient martial arts techniques. improving the system and unlocking the main objective. The system is improved and all points are zeroed out. The new challenge was to become a martial arts pole. In this world, there are many enemies, and only by stamping martial arts pole can all paths be discovered. The system hopes that the user will work hard to achieve this goal. That was the system. Everyone who wants to live the good life needs to get some green. It was a coupon for redemption. The world of martial arts evolved because of Shaolin, so he recommends Shaolin Shi Yijing. The protagonist didn't understand what was going on in his head with this system at all. Maybe it's just a hallucination. This system disappeared very quickly. Da Shan met him at the gate, and the man assured him that he had something important to say. It was the uncle who lost 2 million in the casino back then. Since Xiao brother and niece are on good terms, so he has to say it. Things with Luo Fan are not good at all, so it is better to get rid of this company as soon as possible. Xiao Luo wondered if Uncle's son knew something about her. Truth be told, a man had recently died in his store, and the circumstances of the death were rather strange. That afternoon he was tidying up the shelves as usual, and then a trembling old man came up to him. He was pale and panting. He realized that this situation was somehow strange, and so he helped the old man sit down. The old man definitely died because of illness, and it had nothing to do with him. But the doctors in the old man's family kept saying that his death was their fault. That's why he thinks someone wants to destroy the Luo Fan company. He thanked his uncle for this information and asked him not to reveal his identity to Sun Yu. First, they have to visit Van Techui. The protagonist thinks someone is behind this man. In the evening at Jiancheng State Hospital. According to security, he's here in surgical room 303. They didn't think to see the protagonist's sister here at all. She reported that Sun Yu had missed him these past 2 days. Couldn't you just call and ask how she was doing? The guy explained that he'd been too busy lately. He didn't have time for that sort of thing, but she doesn't care about that at all. The most important thing for her right now is to find a daughter-in-law. Ju and was told to bring the patient's chart immediately. She's going to help her brother set up a date with a girl. He should take her to a movie this weekend. Da Shan said that if he likes this girl, he should act. Juan has already done so much, so he should not even be afraid. Xiao Luo said, at least he should not start a conversation about it. He doesn't want to talk about it, so they should finally go to that room. They finally saw him. Blondie had to wake him up. How dare that man rebel against his brother? So they decided to torture him a little. He saw the protagonist in front of him. Wang Techui didn't understand what he was about to do. He just needs to say who asked for the strike. And if he doesn't, he's dead. It was time for the mercenary king to come out. The man was screaming not to be killed and he would tell everything. A stranger gave him 20,000 yuan and asked him to do this. He also said that if the man succeeded, he would be arranged to work in Wei Lei afterward. Xiao Luo asked if he knew this person. He really doesn't know the man and asked the president to believe him. The blonde man wondered if the guy really took his word for it. You can't get the truth without torture. But the guy replied that this was a hospital, not a torture chamber. Besides, the man wasn't lying to him. What a righteous protagonist they have. Finally, he found them. Knight was put to his throat and told not to move unless he wanted to die. But of course, the protagonist wasn't even afraid of him. But suddenly, he heard a voice telling him to stop if he didn't want to say goodbye to his brother. What a beautiful expression on his face. To begin with, he decided to introduce himself. His name is Xiao A. He also mentioned that today would be the end of their lives. Xiao Luo said, letting him go. After all, he was the only one responsible for everything, and this kid turns out to be righteous. He threw the blonde man toward him. He caught his friend, but then he got hit. Sheik apologized for slightly miscalculating his strength. These were exactly what her expression on his face should be. Blood was dripping from his mouth, after which he immediately pounced on the fat man. I can't believe this kid wasted all his energy on women. His punch is too weak. The protagonist didn't understand why on earth he couldn't hit him properly. This kid is just an amateur who is incapable of using even internal skills. He fights like a common street kid. Xiao Luo didn't understand how this man hit him. Is this really the inner skill? But why is it so strong? The system reported that 1 coupon had been used. Yi Jinjing has been successfully obtained. The protagonist must beat him, so that his mother wouldn't recognize him. If this kid can handle his 3 receptions, he'll let him go in peace. He agreed to it. He used a hearing-destroying double fist. The protagonist also decided to answer him with a reception. Their 2 energies came in contact. They began to bleed from such a blow. This time, Xiao Luo wondered if he had time to spend all his energy on women. He didn't even feel anything. I can't believe this kid was hiding his real strength. That's okay. It was interesting to see how he would do with this technique. He used the skill to fry rabbit meat. but even that didn't help him. He apologized for what he felt was a lack of restraint. That kid made the mountain-destroying Kylan use himself. But this attack was easily ruined by the main character's attack. The man didn't realize how he had succeeded so much in his cultivation. How old was he really? It was impossible to have this level of cultivation. He didn't believe it at all. Xiao Luo reported that he had taken the 3 hits. And now he's decided to introduce himself. He gave his name, and this guy will be the one to take him down. He had already realized that inner strength was indeed very useful. It was meticulously planned, but there seemed to be flaws in the data. This man addressed Mr. Jenin. He admitted that he had made a mistake, but he also had a plan to make things right. He asked the 3rd gentleman to listen to him, so he decided to give it a chance. When Xiao Luo came to the casino, there was a girl with him. Her name is Sun Yu, and they must be very close. I think he means we should kidnap this girl. That's actually not a bad idea. Still, he can survive, but the master informed him that he would be banished from the family. That's the worst thing he could think of. Sun Yu asked if the guy wasn't really going to ask her to go to the movies this weekend. She immediately asked what she should wear, and if he liked skirts. Zhu and replied that her brother is not picky at all when it comes to clothes. She could be sure of that. She was excited to watch a movie with him. Zhu and didn't understand, and how she could be crazy about her brother. As it was, the girls said their goodbyes. A man was already following them. He reported that he recognized the target's plans. She texted the main character that you would be waiting for him at the stairs on Saturday morning. She also offered to go shopping with her. He asked the blonde man if he felt better. Dashan replied that the asshole had been too ruthless. He saw that there was a message on his phone. He didn't seem to like the idea of going shopping very much. He told his friend to take care of his injury. He's going to go see if he can find out anything about who sent those guys to them. Xiao Luo also told him to go to bed early. He will do that once he talks to one girl. The system reported that he'd managed to get 127 points for the last incident, but he couldn't trade anything good for that amount. The boy asked if there was anything he could use to gather information. He went through a lot of stuff, but still found just the right thing. The price is reasonable. It's worth 120 points, but there will even be a 50% discount for him. The guy has changed how he needs to use this skill. The system explained that this idiot had to confirm the exchange first. The system began to be bombarded. Afterward, he confirmed the exchange. It's an ability that allows you to create individual creatures within a network. It's really quite interesting. The system reported that the user is now a professional in the network empire. Well, it's time for the system to go. He doesn't understand why the system is so strange. He began to focus his vision, after which he entered the information world. Now's the best time to find out who's behind those guys. He started a digital scan. After that, the guy found the profile of this very Xiao Yi who attacked him. He works underground, and his work group is the Dragon Gang. Somewhere he had heard about this Dragon Gang before. Suddenly, a dragon appeared from somewhere. His attack was repelled by the man with the shield. Is this so-called hacking and defenses against it? This looks pretty interesting. NSA headquarters, Shihai City. He reported to the chief that their firewall had encountered an attack. Supposedly, the enemy was refuting through the first layer of defense in as little as 10 minutes. They should immediately activate the second and third layer, as well as greater attention to tracking their IPI. Outsiders should not interfere with their network environment. The man asked if they should contact Chu Yue, but there's no need to do that. She's just waiting for them to fail, and then she can have free reign. Still, this girl is an excellent hacker. She asked those program monkeys to finally show up and let you destroy them. At the same time in the virtual world. Now another hacker attack from the other side has emerged. And apparently the first attack was successful. Suddenly someone chopped that dragon. A girl in armor appeared there, the man said, to the group to report the current situation. There are currently attacks from multiple IP addresses on their network. Chu Yue has already intervened. Let those filthy bastards taste her power. She was surrounded by dragons. Now let this garbage try out her moon-destroying viral attack. Her attack was successful, after which it began to crumble into small pieces. Says the girl was yelling about her computer tanking. According to the report, the hacker, Chu Yue, successfully thwarted an attack by enemy hackers. This is good, but they should not let their guard down just yet. The battles in this information world were really interesting, but he's wasted too much time, and it's time to get back to business. This Dragon Gang will do whatever they want. There must be some connection between them. And it was true, for they too had announced the official cooperation between the Huahai Group and the Lunchi Enterprise. Insidious journalists are suspected of supporting gangsters and spreading lies. The guy didn't realize what had just happened. A man reported that their network was under simultaneous attacks from several countries. He ordered to organize the defense and also contact Chu Yue. They should be ready to support her. But enemy hackers broke through the firewall. They also couldn't contact Hacker A, and other hackers say they can't help. They must be prepared to physically disconnect from the network at any time. You can't let them get to the information they need. There's no end to these attacks, so he decided to intervene. They started to disappear. The guy assumed that this firewall should be enough, so it was time to disconnect. The man must have installed a mysterious hacker installed dynamic firewall written in a strange language. He inquired, and how long this firewall would last. He clearly didn't expect to hear that he'd last 9 years. Supposedly, it took 9 years to crack the code. It's also where the information was left, namely, that those who annoy the Chinese people will face serious consequences. The man ordered me to find his favorite my means and invite him to the NSA. He called system on system, replied that it was dead. The guy still asked if there was a way to earn a lot of points quickly, and he needs to make love to Su Li again. The system guarantees he'll get us a bunch of points right away. He blew up the system again, and also asked if there were other ways. The system sent him an optional task. He must restore Luo Fang's reputation within 3 months. If he succeeded, he would receive 30,000 points, and if he failed, 3 of his skills would be randomly selected. He accepted the assignment. The guy announced that Dashan will go with him tomorrow. Blondie wondered where they were going to go. The protagonist explained that they would meet the reporter who framed Luo Fan. The next day, he dialed his sister's number. He reported that someone had recently followed her and Sun Yu. They should be careful of them, and not go where there are few people. Ju and ask her husband to take her to work. She should also tell Sun Yu to be careful. Dashan replied that the protagonist should say it in person, but Xiao Luo suggested that he should focus on his task. Suddenly they heard gunshots. It was the biker who was shot. The gunshots sent him flying off the bike. It was obvious it was a foreigner, and he drew his gun. He shot at the protagonist's car. Does this man really want them to stop? But since the guy's here, it's okay. Nothing to worry about. A man with a gun walked into the man and told him to drive or he would shoot him. He was holding a grenade, because of which Xiao Luo said to go. If the police catch up with them, they'll all fly into the air together. So he picked up even more speed. The protagonist has guessed that he is an assassin. This kid knows too much and he better shut up before it's too late. His hand could accidentally twitch. Like this, for example. His look was grim. After which he sent 2 more bullets. The man then asked if he wanted to join Blackwater and partner with him as a mercenary. The protagonist replied that he'd better get out of this situation first, and then they'd talk. There was a girl on a bicycle in the road. He'd have to swerve to avoid hitting her. Xiao Luo decided to take advantage of this opportunity. This intruder tried to grab her gun, but it was too late. Xiao Luo informed Dashan that the car would have to be washed. The police took the body. The policeman informed him that he had to go to the police station to give a statement. He agreed. It's the first time he's seen a man so calm after a murder. She really did kill that man. The guy reported that this sort of thing would happen more than once and asked if he was scared. The blonde boy would be lying if he said he wasn't. But he wasn't about to back down. Xiao liked him on the stern, and he motioned for him to come home. Someone called his phone and he picked it up. An unknown person reported that Xiao Luo's girlfriend was at his place. This wench looks appetizing, so if he doesn't want her dead, he has until tomorrow night to move to a warehouse in the western suburbs, and he has to be alone. And if he doesn't show up, the guy should realize what will happen to her. She shouted for Brother Xiao not to come here, for they want to kill him. He was obviously shocked. After all, the main characters didn't expect there to be a Sun Yu. Noon the next day, a warehouse in the western suburbs. It was raining outside. The protagonist reported that he was on site. The man told him to wait and he would send someone to meet Xiao Luo. A man with a gun appeared, and the protagonist went after him. He walked into the room, after which it was shut down. Finally, the lead actor has arrived, but what about the lady? Since the script probably wouldn't fit, the kids had to blindfold her. They should play a game with him, and then maybe he'll let them go. Xiao Luo said, letting her go. The man told him he'd better stand still. He's a shy man and might hurt her inadvertently. Turns out he'd already hurt her a little. He called up the system. The guy said to help him. The system said it would cost him a fortune, but he agreed. The man asked if Xiao would obey him or not. The guy replied that he would. The girl was telling the protagonist to leave her and get out of here. She'd better be quiet if she didn't want a couple of scars on her pretty face. The protagonist, after all, promised this man, so he has to let her go. Other people spilled coals for him to crawl over. He had to do it. He thought he could smell the barbecue already, after which he inflicted a cut on the protagonist. She was beginning to worry about him, but the man covered her mouth to keep her quiet. It was time for the actress to take the stage as well. She just couldn't believe her eyes. He was really crawling over the coals. He offered to put on a real show in front of Xiao Luo. She grabbed the knife. She mentally apologized to the protagonist, saying that perhaps her time had come. Sun Yu plunged the knife into her chest. The system reported that the points are on credit. Current balance is 10,000 points. Successful exchange of temporary enhanced body for 10,000 points. He should hurry up, because it might not be too late. They all deserve only one thing, and that's death. He kept going on about how they all had to die. He let the girl go, and was disappointed that he wasn't dead yet. He rushed in to kill that man, but he grabbed the protagonist by the throat, after which he slammed him to the floor. Suddenly, Xiao Luo began to glow. The man guessed it was a saturation of internal energy. Xiao Luo didn't think of giving up so easily. It's a shame that kid is out of his mind. The man would take away his hands, and then they would watch Xiao Luo freak out. But he only smirked. The protagonist took his hands, and asked if these were the hands he had touched Sun Yu with. He crushed his hands, after which he struck a blow with his foot. A man fell. He walked over to the girl. The guy then asked the system if it was still alive. Was it so hard for you to feel her pulse? He's even studying the I Ching. Her heart is still beating, and we need to get her to the hospital as soon as possible. He doesn't have a minute to lose. He used his technique. It was the spirit that began to clear the way for them. He informed the girl that he would take her to the hospital. She must not die. He called Dashan back and told him to pick him up at a warehouse in the western suburbs. Xiao Luo was willing to marry her if she could survive. The rain had stopped. Dashan arrived and opened the door, asking if he was late. He stood there, covered in blood. So the blonde man didn't question it and asked where they were going. The protagonist replied that they needed to get to the hospital as soon as possible. They arrived at the hospital. Would he really have to wash his car of blood again? After that, Xiao Luo placed her on the gurney that Dashan had brought. The doctor replied that his condition was stable, and he could trust them with the rest. The nurse told the blonde boy not to run around the hospital. He could run into patients. The guy told the doctor he had to save this girl. Holding her hand, he fainted himself. Dashan caught Xiao Luo's eye. The main characters didn't understand what was wrong with him. A little while later, he woke up, and the boy immediately remembered about Sun Yu. He immediately asked about her condition. Dashan replied that Zhu Yi was looking after her, so he didn't know the details. There was also a policewoman there who showed her ID. She wants Mr. Xiao to cooperate with her in the investigation of a brutal murder at a warehouse in the western suburbs. The guy replied that it was Officer Gu Qianling. She came this morning and waited for Xiao Luo to wake up. Mr. Xiao has to walk with her to the police station to assist in the investigation. If Sun Yu doesn't wake up, she won't be able to see her brother again. The doctor said that if she didn't wake up within 48 hours, she might fall into a coma. She asked for the sake of Sun Yu and her brother to fight to the end. He entered the room, inquiring about the girl's condition. Zhu Wen replied that at worst she would be in a vegetative state if she didn't wake up in time. He touched her hair. This is the first girl who was willing to die for him. If she wakes up, he'll really marry her. Suddenly the girl opened her eyes, after which she slapped the protagonist on the cheek. He was glad she was awake, but Sun Yu didn't recognize him at all. She told him to get away from her. The doctor said there wasn't enough blood flowing to her brain because of the blood loss, so she might lose her memory for a while. He's not too worried. She asked Zhu Yi if it was her brother and why he was so close to her. Sun Yu was scared. She also assumed that she was in the hospital, and there was wondering how she ended up here. He asked his sister to come out with him for a moment. Sun Yu asked where Zhu Yi was going. The girl reported that she and her brother would be back soon. She would have to wait a little longer. There was an officer waiting for them. She inquired now that he was out if he could go with her to the police station. He asked Officer Gu to give him a few minutes. She thought about arresting this guy as soon as she had proof. Still, she agreed to give him a few minutes. They moved further away from the officer, and the guy asked to promise her that sister wouldn't let Sun Yu know all about the connection between her and Xiao Luo. She didn't understand his motives. He sat through a promise that he would not let her remember the protagonist, as if they had never known each other. She agreed. It's too dangerous around him. If he leaves her, she'll be safer. Whereupon he replied that they could go to the police station. Let the memories of Xiao Luo be buried deeply in her mind. The system was watching the poor little Luo. Although he and Su Li fit together perfectly, it looks like it will go to Sun Yu. Suddenly he saw on his watch that it was time to collect his debts. He'll give him a little more time. That's all he can do for the kid right now. Yangchun City Police Headquarters. The officer knew that yesterday morning he had gone to a warehouse in the western suburbs. She wondered what he was doing there. The guy replied that he was saving Sun Yu, so he admits that all the murders that were committed in the warehouse were his doing. But he replied that this was not true. Lying here is a violation of the law, and he thought he was just here to help with the investigation. The girl wondered if he even understood the consequences of his actions. The protagonist stated that he had done nothing. She warned in advance that Chu Yunxiong would not be able to protect him if Xiao Luo relied on him. Guy wondered what the officer was getting at. She should express herself more clearly. She grabbed him by his clothes, questioning whether he even realized who he had crossed paths with. But the guy replied that he still didn't understand what the GU officer was talking about. Is there a guy will cooperate with the police? Then she is sure that this time they will find the evidence and eradicate the tumor with Lunban. He has to realize how good an opportunity this is. Xiao Luo wondered if she was finally getting her hand away from him. Since she can't do it herself, he will. After that, the guy said that he had things to do, so he would go. It's unlikely these cops will get the result he wants. She just yelled after him. He won't give up until he gets the win. The kid also told Da Shan to give Da Shan a good rest for a few days. Perhaps later, when he had to meet Gu Luofan, he would need the blonde man's help. But Sun Yu hasn't even recovered yet. He shouldn't do anything stupid. But the guy replied that everything was fine and Da Shan just needed to rest. He'll let me know when he needs help. The blonde advised him to tell him everything that was on his mind rather than keeping it to himself. He only replied that Da Shan had nothing to worry about. Soon the Dragon Gang will be finished. A system appeared in front of him. It reported that today was the 19th of May, the due date of the debt, and it could no longer be extended. The system has sent an alert that he must pay a debt of 20,000 points, including interest rate, within 2 months. In case of non-payment, the system will take the user's body, so please take it seriously. He really isn't interested in the main character's body, but rules are rules, so he should think hard about it. Sounds like he needs to take care of the gang as soon as possible. But first, he needs to go to the company. They welcomed President Xiao. He was also told that Vice President Xu Guansong had recently left with someone. In order to face the despair with Chen Jianbai, he needs to take someone with him. Since the vice president isn't here, that leaves only Li Zimen. As soon as he asked if the girl was on the spot, she immediately came to them. Zimen asked the president what he wanted. The protagonist asked if she knew Chen Jianbai. The girl replied that she used to be responsible for associating with him. She also pointed out that the man was unreasonable. Xiao Luo asked to find him, because he wanted to meet him in person. She can do that, but still asked if the president was sure she wanted to meet with him. The protagonist said to just take him to the man. They arrived on the scene. She indicated that the man was there, and the other 4 were his friends. He decided to show him something. As soon as the guy threw the ball in the basket, the main character caught it. She didn't understand what Mr. Xiao was doing. Isn't he afraid of being beaten for this? The guy asked what he was doing. Was he really so sick that he wanted to die in this way? The main character told him not to hysterical, and he just wanted to talk. He introduced himself as the new president of the Luo fan company, and he has a case for him. The guy asked if President Xiao really wanted him to poison someone. He must realize that it was all a lie, right? Xiao Luo only hoped that he could help clear the company's good name. Chen Jianbai asked how much he would be paid for it. The protagonist replied that he wouldn't get anything from it. It should have been enough for him that the guy didn't accuse him of slander. Would consider it such sincerity. He just laughed. This president is so funny. He should go to the store and buy a new brain because the current one seems to be malfunctioning. He told the guys that they would continue this fool. They would just leave it. Zimeng stopped the gentleman, saying that he had better not mess with them. She saw him go to the other balls. The girl thought she'd gotten away with it. He didn't seem like he was going to pick a fight with them. But he only contrarily drew his sword and threw it. It hit right at Chen Jianbai. It's definitely over. He asked what kind of bastard did it. The main character cheerfully raised his hand, indicating that it was him. He immediately grabbed him by the collar, asking what the hell he did that for. Xiao Luo did say that he just wanted to talk to him, right? But of course he didn't think to talk to the bastard. The guy stopped his fist and wondered if he might change his mind after all. What the president really thinks is that he's going to rebuild what he himself destroyed. Does it mean that all rumors of news that concern the company are deliberately made up by him, and the bread poisoning case is also his handiwork? He can write and do what he wants. And if the president doesn't want his company destroyed, it's worth treating him with all due respect. If this kid spoils his mood, tomorrow he'll write about how all the company employees have AIDS and mix their blood when making bread. Then he'll be very interested to see if anyone wants to buy his products. He slanders and spreads idle rumors. He should be held legally responsible for this. In front of their reporters, this Luo Fan is absolutely nothing. But if Ms. Li spends the night with him, he might consider getting behind the company. They laughed out loud. She called him the son of an easy woman. The lad, however, replied that entertaining such a capable woman as Miss Li was the dream of his life. That kid's a goddamn scumbag. I wish he'd just die. The protagonist praised him for these beautiful words. He turned on the recorder, which began to play back all of Janbai's past words. So he decided to catch him. He ordered the boys to surround him. The protagonist said that Ms. would be responsible for suing him for libel and defamation. She admitted that their new president is pretty conniving. He was interested to see what the bastard would do when they started beating him. He ordered his boys to pile on top of him and beat him until he called him father. But Xiao Luo decided to hit him first, and he also called him father. That kid went down on the first punch. She didn't realize the president of the village was that good. He asked if anyone wished to stand up for this kid. They all started shaking their heads. No one was eager to be beaten. Then he better get out of here before it's too late. The president is simply amazing. Suddenly he stopped, and the girl crashed into him. Zeman apologized for that. But the protagonist just reminded her to remember to sue Chen Zhenbai tomorrow. Since he has things to do, he will go. She said goodbye to him. The girl hadn't noticed before how charming the president was. Since they now have a record with evidence, this restoration of the company's reputation is only a matter of time. Once Luo Fan gets back on his feet, then the conduct of all the company's affairs, he will leave Zhang Deshan to Zhang Deshan and concentrate on fighting Lunban's bastards himself. He was called back. The man reported that the company is in trouble. Fouquet's company is going to cancel their contract with them. Fouquet has one of the top 500 processing plants in the world and is an important customer for them. Every year they used to order 8 million mooncakes from them for their workers. He doesn't know what happened now, but suddenly they decided not to renew their contract. He said to call the heads of all departments, and that they should all meet in his office tomorrow morning to discuss the case. Xu Yunchong said that there was a mole in Luo Fan's company. He assumed that it was Xu Guansong. Perhaps he should ask Deshan to investigate it when he gets some rest. The next morning, Xiao Luo's office. The man heard that the president was going to sue Chen Jianbai. He advised him to think twice. The whole company would be worse off if he failed. If they don't restore the company's reputation, its position will still deteriorate. Or perhaps Vice President Xu was about to look for a new job. The man asked the president why he felt that way. He is loyal to their company. The head of the marketing department is responsible for the company's contracts. Therefore, she should explain the situation of the Fuke company there. According to the contract, a penalty of 10 million should be paid for its termination. But the thing is, the contract expired by the middle of this fall. It was originally planned that after the last delivery, both parties would renew the contract, but suddenly Fouquet decided to cancel. He asked why then Ms. Li does not sign new contracts with big clients like the Fuke company in advance before the old ones expire. The girl replied that it was her fault. Luoqi explained that there was no way Zeman could have expected that Fuke's company would fold this time. They had acted immorally, so she should not be blamed for it. The most important thing right now is to get the Fouquet contract back. He told the vice president to contact them. The protagonist wants to meet their head. Ms. Li should think about how she will correct her mistakes. Luoqi and Xu Guansong will go with him to meet with the head of the Fuke company, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The Pollock Golf Course. Mr. Yang comes here every day to play a few strokes, so he wants the boss to play golf with him. The fact that he agreed to meet already shows his sincerity. He said to take the contract and go to him. Fouquet's CEO, Zhang Honda. The girl asked the vice president if it was really boss Zhang. He did pretty well among the girls there. He told her to shut up so as not to ruin the opportunity to negotiate. He remarked that it was too rude to talk like this. If Zhang Honda heard this, he might even refuse to talk to them. The main character asked if he was Zhang Honda. In such a situation, calling people by name is taboo. Didn't you, President Xiao, want to talk business? The girl, on the other hand, was thinking about the boss being so cool. The boy said hello behind Mr. Zhang. All he said was to serve him grapes, so the girl decided to feed him. There was traffic on the road, so they apologized for the gentleman having to wait so long. He finally noticed them after all. Xu Guansong introduced the current president of the company to Luo Fan, whose name is Xiao Luo, and they came to see the master on important business. The protagonist extended his hand and said hello to Mr. Zhang once more. He had heard that their company had changed their head, but he didn't expect him to be so young and inexperienced. No wonder Luo Fang was losing ground more and more. Luo Qi flared up. Can he see that their boss extended his hand for a handshake, and this man still dares to say that they don't know about politeness when he himself behaves the same way? The vice president asked who asked her to interfere in the conversation of the head of the company. The girl replied that he had behaved impolitely. That girl better watch what she says or she might get hurt. As long as Xiao Luo is her superior, then she will not allow anyone to harm her subordinates. It seems that this Zhang Honda called them here, plotting something. He decided to drop the matter and asked why they had asked for a meeting. Mr. Zhang had been ordering mooncakes from them for 3 years, so they wondered why he suddenly changed his mind. Isn't he afraid of ruining his company's reputation? For 3 years, he had worked with the past head of the company, not this particular guy. Therefore, he didn't understand what Xiao Luo had to do with him. After all, he doesn't even know him, so he shouldn't sign those contracts with him. Another man arrived and apologized for the delay. The traffic on the way was too heavy. Zhang Honda replied that it was fine and motioned for him to sit down. There were too many cars in their country and not enough roads, so nothing could be done about it. He apologized again. But it's no big deal. Zhang Honda has a great rest area here, so they can have a drink and chat. The vice president said that the man's name was Fang Chanlei, and he was the owner of Wei Lei Company. Chanlei noticed the vice president from Luo Fan's company. The man reported that they came here in an attempt to re-establish a contract with them. But he never does business with garbage companies that have product safety issues, so their efforts are futile. The girl couldn't stand it and called him trash, and his whole family is trash too. The vice president has given up hope. It's over. This girl has no manners at all and should be punished. Chanlei ordered his man to teach her how to behave properly. He swung around to hit her, but the protagonist did not allow this to happen. He explained it by saying that she was his person, and he would not allow anyone to teach her. So this is that Xiao Luo, a nameless pawn that had nothing but looked up to Boss Chu. Does this pawn think it can step a step to heaven? Except that being one step away from heaven can lead to a terrible fall. If he suddenly starts to fall, he'll catch the head of the fan with him, and then they'll crash together. Chanlei said the young ones are too arrogant. Apparently they don't know that one day they might die because of it. Head fan is so fond of relying on his old age when communicating. But he should be careful, because most of these people died right in front of Xiao Luo. Zhang Honda intervened in their conversation and told Xiao Luo to leave this place. He was not welcome here. The vice president quizzed the boss Fanya to chill out. It's their fault, so they will apologize to the boss. He shouldn't take it too personally. But hasn't the vice president noticed this yet? Mr. Zhang only wanted to humiliate them in front of Fan Chanlei, and he didn't even plan to reconsider the termination of the contract from the beginning. The girl supported the boss's rightness. He asked her if she could at least shut up for a while. She didn't seem to realize that in such situations, you can't fan the flames even more. He asked the vice president why he should waste his talent in Luo Fan. He should go to Wei Lei Company. Boss Fan would be happy to have him. That's a good idea. If Vice President Xu goes to him, he will give the position of Vice President to Wei Lei. The management of the whole company will be on the Vice President. He himself will retreat behind the scenes. It's better than working in a slowly rotting Luo Fan. He thanked for such kindness, but Luo Fan was still like family to him. It doesn't matter what position she is in right now. He won't be able to leave her and the people as long as she still exists. These two seem to be very interested in making the protagonist lose face. The man asked why he was still here. Shouldn't he ask someone to have Xiao Luo taken out of here? But he'll be gone as soon as he's done with things here. He shouldn't even dream of the Fuke Company ordering anything from him. Such worthless companies should be shut down immediately. He took their teapot and drank from it, and as an apology, he decided to pour them tea. The man asked him what it meant. That bastard drank straight from the teapot. Nobody touches that tea again. The guy replied that they just weren't acting very appropriately, which annoyed him a lot. If it were the old him, they would have been tracked to the hospital a long time ago, and he will be the one to send them to the hospital. They clearly didn't expect him to be able to break a cup with his bare hands. They live in a state of law, and does he really think he can get away with this kind of intimidation? But they're wrong about some things. Zhang Honda wondered what he meant by that. He's not just intimidating them, he's threatening him. Mr. Zhang may not sign the contract, but he won't allow him to insult the company. He remained silent, for he did not know what to say. Xiao Luo had heard that Mr. Zhang was good at golf, so he offered to play. Since this kid is such a masochist, Brother Zhang should satisfy his desires. He proposed to the couple. If the protagonist wins, Head Zhang will sign a new contract with them. And if he loses, he will give the Luo Fan Company to Mr. Zhang. This guy can't really just give away a company worth several hundred million. He's really an idiot. He told the girl to write down everything that happens here. Since he is so generous, the man can't help but respond. Instead of the original pledge of 8 million, he will order products for Nancheng and Bencheng as well. If the protagonist wins, then he will sign a contract totaling 15 million. But in case of defeat, then Luo Fan will be handed over to him. Zhang Honda is well known for his skillful golf game. Head Xiao needs to think twice. They don't need this contract that much, so they shouldn't take such a risk for the sake of it. He only reminded him not to let the head forget his words about the 15 million. Since Brother Zhang is involved, he will make a bet of 5 million. If Xiao Luo wins, the money will be his. But in case he loses, the man wants the protagonist to get on his knees and loudly acknowledge the fact that he is trash. He agreed to it. He decided to explain the rules. Each person would have to hit 5 balls into that hole, and whoever takes the least number of strokes will win. He decided to make the move first. The ball stopped 1.3 meters from the hole. The man really is a master at this. He almost hit the hole on his first shot. President Xiao is at a disadvantage. Chanlei recognized that Brother Zhang was indeed the best golfer in all of Jianqing. It was a pity that the club was awkwardly placed in his hand, otherwise he would have launched the ball even closer. In golf, practice is very important. Head Xiao is still too young. He is no match for Head Zhang in terms of experience. But the worst thing here is that he really did Luo Fan as a bet. There's a line at the canteen for the head of the Xiao. The system informed him that until he paid off the debt, he would not be able to trade skills. But he doesn't have to worry because he knows what to do. He asked to bet all 5 balls at once, as he doesn't want to waste time. Luo Qi asked the vice president if the boss could handle it. Zhang Honda is very good at golf. The man replied that right now he could only hope that God would not leave him out. He had internalized all the information about the Yijinjing technique. Therefore, he is now familiar with space control. At the moment of impact, it was as if a magic circle had appeared. She prayed to God that the boss would win this bad boy Zhang. Surprisingly, his ball went straight into the hole. Then he launched the rest of them with his sword. He thought this kid was a golf pro, but it turns out he's still green. But he didn't even expect the rest of the balls to be in the hole either. The girl reported that all 5 strokes hit the hole. Zhang Honda admitted his loss. The man accused the little bastard of deliberately pretending to be a sheep to humiliate them. No matter what he does, the contract and that 5 million is his now. He didn't even know what to say back, because it was the truth. The guy asked if the head of Wei Lei was so upset about the 5 million. He lost, but the protagonist should wait, and then he will return her to him all double. The men inquired as to how on earth he was able to do this. Xiao Luo will tell you after he signs the contract. Afterward, the girl asked the boss if what he said to Zhang Honda was true. Was he really practicing 5 hours a day trying to drive balls into the hole for 10 years? He only smiled but didn't answer her anything. The vice president asked the chapter if he had ever heard of the Dragon Gang. The protagonist wondered why he was asking such a question and if Vice President Xu and had something to do with them. The head must be joking. The Dragon Gang is the largest underground force in Jianqing, supporting many small gangs on the streets of the city. He's just an employee of the company, so it's unclear how he could be related to them. He wondered if Boss Xiao knew why the Weilei company was able to put so much pressure on Luo Fan that the former head had no choice but to sell the company to Boss Chu. It is said that in the early days, Fang Chanlei saved for the Dragon Gang leader called Lun Sankuya, who was desperate at that time. So the relationship between them is good now. When the former head was about to be sued for unfair competition, he was thrown into the sea and almost became fish food. After that, he sold the company to Chu's boss and left town. He hasn't been heard from since. Therefore, Head Xiao had better make peace with Fan Chanlei. The Dragon Gang is not something ordinary people can handle, the protagonist asked. And how does he propose to reconcile? Do they have to sign an unequal treaty just like the government of the Qin Empire? She doesn't believe the police can't deal with them. He said they are going back to the company. Half an hour later, Luofan Company. Miss Li brought him documents that contained information about Weilei's old partners and clients. She gathered her to lure them one by one to Xiao Luo's side. She has done a great job, and if she needs any help, she can go straight to the president. Most likely, his help will really be needed to negotiate with Jian Yunchun of the Intong factory, who produces plastic products. He has a good relationship with Fang Chanlei and is a loyal customer of Weilei. They have tried many times but have never been able to get a meeting with him. He looked at the man's paperwork. It said he liked cigarettes and wine and had no interest in women, a bachelor. He said that tomorrow Luo Qi would go with him to the Intong factory to meet with Jian Yunchun. The girl asked if the big boss knew how to make a deal with him. The protagonist responded positively. NSA headquarters. It is reported that the past intervention was made from Jiancheng. They should secretly send someone for a contract. There aren't any particularly big problems yet, so they need to poach him into the organization. At the same time, Xiao Luo's house. Thanks to the Yijing, he learned traditional Chinese medicine practically overnight. A rich man who likes tobacco and alcohol but doesn't pay attention to women. Such a truth is hard to believe. Therefore, the main character wanted to check what was wrong with him. Intune Factory. The big boss had become quite famous. Jang Yunchun simply couldn't refuse to meet him, but he doesn't think he made a big deal out of it. Most likely that man just didn't have any other plans. The man informed the headmaster that the head of Xiao had arrived. He ordered them to be let in. It looks like Xiao Luo might be onto something. He heard that head Zhang's order from the boss was cancelled, but he used sneaky tricks as well. But Director Jiang shouldn't be so hostile to them. After all, they came here to discuss an important matter. He spends 500,000 on orders from Wei Lei, and the protagonist will only spend 450,000. Being a businessman, a director should think about the possible benefits, but he didn't even want to read the documents. He only recognizes Wei Lei, and Luo Fan is like dust on the road in his eyes. The director has improved his calmness. Didn't he pass out only 3 days ago? Could it be that this Spasa beggar was following him? The director is slowly dying of a serious illness, but he still doesn't know about it. Nothing. In 4 years he will faint again, and then he will believe it. But he'd better pick up the contract from the floor, because if it's soiled, the protagonist just won't accept it. He only laughed, asking about who he was trying to intimidate there. Still, he decided to keep the contract sheets. 4 days later. As it turned out, Jang Yongchun came to them with a contract, and the big boss had just raised his value to 1 million. But that's crazy. It would be just fine if the director signed the old contract. But this is overkill. He walked out of the office, thanking Head Xiao for giving him this opportunity. 5 million is well worth it. Big boss is awesome. Turns out they were talking about 5 million. As it turned out, Da Shan caught a mole who was hiding himself in the company. So the protagonist decided to pay them a visit. The blonde man explained that he caught this kid when Zhang Dunhai was trying to work on the factory furnace. It was unlikely that an ordinary worker would be doing that, so the only option left was that he was a mole. The main character said to hand him a chair. He's been plotting against the company, and now he's got to be put in the chair. A bottle would be better for him. He said the Xiao Chief's guard dog almost killed him. The guy mentioned it was a friend of his. He'll only ask him one thing, namely whether he can testify against Fang Chanlei in court. But after all, the Dragon Gang is behind him. Does Head Xiao think he has had enough of life and will definitely testify against him? He can keep the man and his family safe. And when everything is resolved, he will give him 2 million and send him out of Jianshan. But Dunhai only laughed. Did he seriously think that against a dragon gang this was possible? The protagonist gave the address of Zhang Dunhai's wife, children, and his young mistress. He must bring them here to see the man one last time. He swore he would do it. He wants Da Shan to take some people from Luo Fan's company and act in the court session. Xiao Luo will himself assist him behind his back. Today, they will be live-streaming the public hearing on the lawsuit of Luo Fan versus Chen Jianbai. The protagonist conveyed that he should not be nervous. He will help his friend, therefore he must act. The system informed him that if he wanted a skill suitable for it, he had to pay off the debt first. She still hopes the guy doesn't change his mind and starts cooperating with the police. But he told her to be quiet. The judge announced that the case of Chen Jianbai falsification case against Luo Fan Company is declared open. The plaintiff and defendant are now admissible in the case, if any. The attorney stated that the plaintiff threatened his client. The tape he provided is false, and all of his accusations are false. Da Shan asked if he had proof that the recording was fake or if he just decided it himself. They've already submitted an autopsy report to the court. It shows that the deceased died due to an overdose of preservatives. This proves that Chen Jianbai's words are not unfounded. He said, "I'll shove that kind of evidence up your ass." The vice president thought this guy was warm, but now he's taking it back. The judge told him to watch his expressions. The protagonist also told him to express himself without swearing. Xiao Luo found out that Fu Heiyu's wife recently left him for someone else, so the guy has to use this to provoke him. He apologized to the judge, asking forgiveness for his choice of inappropriate swear words. But there are 2 questionable points here. First, why did the medical examiner resign and leave town immediately after completing the autopsy report? And second, Chen Jianbai has fabricated a lot of false news in recent years, so the question is whether his reports are really credible. He started protesting. Today's hearing is about a completely different case. Everything he said now applies to this case. The man was covering for the guilty party, so he wondered if he slept well at night. The attorney asked what kind of nonsense he was talking about. He probably has kidney problems, not sleep problems. He told the bastard to repeat what he just said there. Lawyer Fu shouldn't get so excited. Others may think that the wife really left the lawyer because of kidney failure. He couldn't stand the accusation. The judge asked the defendant's attorney to calm down. He roughly expressed that he was definitely calm, but the judge didn't like it and ordered him out. He asked the judge to hear him out. That's not what the man meant. The situation as a whole was almost resolved, and now the end of the Dragon Gang was even closer. He asked Officer Gu if the police department was recruiting auxiliary police. Xiahai City, singer Suli's house. She was putting on her makeup. A girl came in to see her and called her aunt. Suli asked the little Bei girl what happened. This little girl was the same beggar who helped Xiao Luo. She hadn't contacted her little brother in a long time, so she was worried if he would be angry. This little girl is so cute after all, so he won't even be able to get mad at her. Suli was told to hurry up, as there might be traffic on the way to the airport at that time. She reassured the little girl that they would thank her big brother and he would forgive her. She asks where it is for the 6th or 7th time this morning. Auntie is jealous, after all. The girl replies that it is time for them to see Auntie already waiting for them outside. It's time to go to Jianshan. The girl spoke to her father about the entire hall returning Xiao Shui today. She asked if he would send someone to pick her up. She sent her personal belongings and said she would find her herself to spend a couple days with her, so the girl should call her herself when she had time. She's been in the mountains for more than 10 years and Dad seriously thinks she can be left alone. What kind of father is he? The man replied that she had been practicing martial arts on the mountain for over a decade. Did the girl really think that someone could harm her without a weapon? She disconnected, calling him an irresponsible jerk. The man didn't understand why she was always dissatisfied. Now he had to take care of his sister too. She also couldn't reach Zhao Zue. Do these two really want to piss her off? Jianshan railway station. She could become a policewoman like her father and sister. But the girl didn't know how to get to the district Guanming bureau. But Xiao Zhu can handle it. She will definitely find the right path. When the protagonist becomes an auxiliary police officer, he will easily destroy the Dragon Gang. Suddenly, he saw that Chu's boss was calling him for some reason, and asked what was wrong. Chu Yunsheng asked if he had plans for the evening. He suggested having dinner on those, somewhere together. He didn't know what a dream was needed, but it would be hard to refuse. So the guy replied that he would make time for it. He made an appointment for tonight at 9 o'clock in the evening. Chunshan Pavilion. He was happy to meet Brother Xiao Luo. He was thinking about the guy who went against Old Man Zhao, so today he must convince Lun San Kui not to touch Brother Zhao. He asked the gentleman why he had called him at such a time and if something was wrong. Chu-san asked the protagonist if he knew about the Dragon Gang. This gang does illegal business in Jiancheng, and those who hurt them badly and don't live long. Is Mr. Dragon Gang lobbyist consuming? He only laughed, saying that Lun San Kui would not allow him to be a lobbyist. Today, he called the kid here to make up with Xiao Luo for the sake of appearances. Right now, San Yu Kui is beyond him, but in the future, if he wants to deal with him, he will easily swat him. It might take him about 5 more days to join the auxiliary police. Until then, he must somehow ensure the safety of his sister and others close to him. Therefore, he decided to trust Mr. Chu. Patience is very important at a young age. He likes this guy even more and more. The man also asked if he had thought about marrying Chu Yue. The guy replied that he was going to concentrate on his career and hadn't thought about starting a family yet. An hour later, Lung San Kui arrived and apologized for keeping Boss Chu waiting. There was an awkward silence. He wondered who the asshole was sitting here. Then he stopped, for he realized he couldn't offend this guy in front of the Chu boss. He asked me to bring him 3 bottles of vodka. Since this kid is strong in martial arts, he will beat him in drinking. The man asked what he was up to there. Didn't Chu's boss want the man to acknowledge him? Let the bum drink 2 bottles. He agreed. But as soon as the guy started drinking alcohol, he hit him with the bottle. He used so much internal force in hitting the bottle. But this kid got off so lightly. 2 bottles are his apology to the boy, and the 3rd is payment for killing the younger man. Fortunately, the protagonist is constantly covered in inner strength. Otherwise, this Lun San Kui might as well kill him. The man asked if his brother was okay, and if he needed to take him to the hospital. He asked Mr. San, now that he was satisfied. Brother Chu stood up for that boy, so how can he bother him? He can't handle him alone, so he'll have to plan something else. Then he'll thank Mr. Sani too. He thanked Mr. Chu for the evening, and if there was nothing else, he would go. The man hoped that San Kui would keep his promise. He replied that the people of the Dragon Gang would not take the initiative to provoke this boy. He informed Daiyuan and Len Bao that he would make an announcement tomorrow that he was excluding them from the Dragon Gang. The man asked what they had at least done wrong. Does this Chu Yunshun really need to be treated like this? He shouldn't care. They must deal with that boy together. They also have to cover their tracks. He didn't understand why on earth Lun San Kui was going to kill him. A man named Gu Qianlin called him back. It was said that the family of the rescued girl would visit the protagonist tomorrow morning to thank him. It turns out this girl has found her parents, and he hopes they are taking good care of her. Next morning, Officer Gu told him to get out because the kid had a visitor. he reminded the officer that he was her prisoner. This girl was happy to see her brother and announced that she had brought her aunt with her to meet him. He took her in his arms and realized that she had gotten heavier. Suli introduced with Aunt Xiaobei. Xiao Luo introduced himself. She offered her sister tea and Officer Gu to walk with the little girl. She wants to talk to Mr. Zhao. They recognized each other immediately. Since the guy picked her up the first time and saved her sister's baby, Suli thinks he is her boyfriend. She also said that if he wanted to, let him come to Siahai and find her. Whether or not to come is up to him. He didn't even realize that he was surrounded by women of that position. But he didn't know if he was capable of taking responsibility for any of them. He's a walking curse after all. He called back before Shanu and informed her that he wanted to borrow the car to relax. The blonde man said that the car keys were hanging on the rack and the car was parked at his house. He got in the car. The man informed the Bo brother that their dead man was driving somewhere. He also attached a locator to the car. He should tell the others to continuously monitor his changing location. The man handed him a wad of money, telling him to keep his mouth shut. The man conveyed that there would be no problem with that. There was a huge man standing behind him. He told him to look carefully. He could, with his bare hands, twist the key. It will happen to a man if he blabs anything. He asked the brother Bao what they would do next. They need to find a place where there are no video cameras, and that's where they'll finish that bastard off. He has practically restored the former greatness of the Luo fan company. All that's left is to pay Chu Yunxiang 600 million yuan by the end of the year. And once he becomes a police officer, he will immediately get rid of the tumor called the Dragon Gang. But he didn't know what he would do after that. He also remembered that the system had mentioned something about becoming a martial arts pillar. That guy must be a cultivator, so he has to use internal force on the bumper of the truck. They should make sure he gets a serious bump after the collision. That's something the brother doesn't have to worry about. And whether or not there were any promises there, it would still feel weird. There was a collision. The men came out to finish him off. Bao told me to kill that kid. He's really unlucky in this life. But he didn't let it hit him. On the contrary, he killed this man. To the second one, he also told him to come over to kill him if he was so bold. That boy's got nothing left. He came at him with a knife. He threw a knife. The knife hit the man. Meanwhile, he had already helped his friend. After which, they decided to flee. The system told the boy he needed treatment. It'll only cost 10 grand. This treatment, he only needs it for his feet. Out came a man who saw that there was someone alive here after all. He dialed 911. Afterward, the man sat with the protagonist in the ward. A policeman knocked on their door. The kid had no appetite at all. The policeman thought it must be Mr. Xiao's father. He is here to find out about the incident his son has experienced. After which he showed his ID, talking about how he's only 22. And he is not the father of this guy. A few days later, Guangming Police Bureau. He asked Ashan to reconsider while for Luo Fan instead. Also, in the near future, he should try to go out less often and be careful. He realizes that he is unlikely to be able to help his friend now. But he must also remember that not all is lost yet. As long as there is a forest, then they should not worry that they will not have firewood. The protagonist replied that he knew that, and bid him farewell. Zhu and asked why her brother suddenly decided to call her back. He also told her to be extremely careful lately. And if she needed to go out for anything, she should ask Dashan's brother for help. She asked if something was wrong. It'll all be settled soon, so until then, she should be careful. The police officer informed them to follow everyone to the backyard and try not to make any noise. It was the same man who asked the man in charge. He wasn't late yet, was he? The policeman called him uncle and explained that this was a registration center for auxiliary aid training. Only young people under the age of 25 are recruited. Basis was angry at being called uncle. He's only 22 after all. Xiao Luo did not expect to meet him here. However, it might be interesting. First, they'll follow him to practice at the firing range. He noticed that this friend had recovered so quickly from his injury. The protagonist replied that he was able to recover quickly thanks to his family's kung fu. It was unbelievable to him. This policeman will be their teacher, and his name is Yang Wan. He hopes they can have a great time here. They must run 30 laps around the range. Their muscles need to warm up. Liu Tego told his friend to look over there, for he had spotted a beauty there. The protagonist replied that he was not interested in girls right now. He felt uncomfortable at such words. Right now, he only has an interest in one thing, namely the destruction of the Dragon Gang. He wondered if Liu could handle it. 3 hours had passed. He wondered if he'd been discovered or not. He noticed that fire trucks were traveling fast. It was clear that they were going to the Hoon area. Could it be that something had happened there? He decided to jump on the roof of the building. Then he noticed that the fire was pretty bad, and those people are probably chasing her. The girl was running and didn't realize what she had to do, but they've already caught up with her. If she can get out of the Hun area, she must not be caught by them again. Otherwise, they'll drag her back in and never let her out. She begged them to let her go. The girl was ready to pay whatever they said. But does she really think they need the money? Her friends gave her some pills, so let them have some fun now. But suddenly a cigarette was thrust into his hand. He didn't know who had done it. There was a Lugu there who noticed all this. It was clear that some scum was harassing the girl in the alley. He's not gonna let it go. He shouted out to the protagonist that he would fight for justice. If the man dies, Xiao Luo should tell his mother that he sacrificed himself for a good cause. The others wondered if his head was all right. Liu Tegu replied that they would now answer for all their evil deeds. He began to stand, telling them to attack. They realized they have a martial arts expert here. His brothers can play with this old man. The man rebuked, saying he was only 25. He kicked with his right foot, low kick left and jab left. He grabbed the Liu Tegu's arm as he thought of making a lightning strike. Over the phone, Xiao Luo heard Liu Tegu's cries for help. He came down to them, talking about how his friend wasn't too smart, so he's just going to take him out of here. The blonde didn't understand where the arrogant bastard was coming from. He told him to get out of here and stay out of the Dragon Gang's business or he'd kill him. He apologized for not recognizing the Dragon Gang member. Also, the protagonist told Liu Tag to stay away. He didn't care about what was going on here until he heard about the Dragon Gang, but now he's decided to take it upon himself. He dodged that punch, after which she punched him in the face. The man flew off, saying he was finished. The Dragon Gang won't let him go that easily. Xiao Luo told him to remember the one who beat the Dragon Gang members. A system appeared, saying that little Luo was too tough. He had beaten 8 members of the Dragon Gang, and as a reward, he received 123 points. The girl thanked him. He took off his jacket to let her cover herself. The system swept up and he made the girl blush and fret, after which he was rewarded with 40 points. He pulled the Leggett behind him to get them out of here. But the man decided to take a picture of them. The blonde yelled for the bastard to stop. The dragon bandit got a good kick in the heel. Everyone should like that. Liu Tegu also said that he found something in the Hong area. Xiao Luo said, "Take your time, because there are too many people outside. They will discuss everything when they leave here." But the girl wanted to go with them. As it turned out, her name was Jin Li, and she inquired if she could do it. The guy explained that he's just doing what he thinks is right, and he doesn't need to give himself away so immediately. He just wants to go home, or his family will worry. The girl revealed that she had no family. Her parents died early, and she came to Jianshan with her boyfriend to get a job. But he became addicted to gambling and spent all their savings. 2 weeks ago, he sold the girl to the Dragon Gang to pay off his debts. People from the Dragon Gang forced her to drink with customers in the Hun area, and if she refused, they beat her. She couldn't take it anymore and wanted to die with the gang members. She wanted to set fire to the apartment and take them all with her. But chaos broke out, so she was able to escape. They now realized that she was the fire starter. She asked not to be left alone. The girl would do anything they asked. She would help them. Jin Li is a good person, so old Liu will take care of her. He told his partner to calm down, for he was already drooling. This girl would go with them tonight, and they would deal with the rest later. She thanked them. In the Guanming area, there are indeed several headquarters of the Dragon Gang. The Hong district is their main source of income. That's where they do all their business. There's a huge flow of money from there. He also thinks there's some illicit trade going on there. We should ask Jin Li, for she obviously knows about their internal affairs. The girl finally stepped out into the shower garden in her new clothes. They were his sister's clothes, so she would have to wear them for now. Tomorrow he would bring her new clothes. It's okay, but she's a little tight in the chest. The system was in heaven. He mentioned that the gang members who were after her had given her some kind of substance. So he wondered what it was, but she has no idea what it is. She was given this substance and then sent to the Hun region. When she woke up, she was yelled at and beaten. She doesn't remember much. I think she was slipped something. But the businessmen in the Hun district often talked about drugs too. They gave them to women to control. Victims of human trafficking, like her. The guy apologized for making me think of unpleasant things. In the Hun neighborhood, she was often beaten for any disobedience. Every day she wanted to die as soon as possible. She saw that Brother Xiao was very strong. She offered to catch and punish those bad guys. He stroked her head, indicating that he could do it. He must make the Dragon Gang pay dearly for all they have done. But Xiao Luo also suffered from the Dragon Gang. The guy replied that it's a long story. By mistake, he had helped some people. And he did not know then that by doing so, he had crossed the path of a dragon bandit. Initially, their target was only himself. But then they also hurt a girl he cared for very dearly. She lost her memory. She never remembered the guy. That's why he promised to destroy the Dragon Gang. Either he would win or lose everything. The girl said she would support him in this. Liu Tegu was willing to do so as well. But suddenly she began to fall. He caught her and asked if she was okay. The girl replied that it was just a slight dizziness after a long bath. Then she'd better go get some rest for now. If she wants to, she can stay part-time at the newspaper later. She said goodnight to the men and left. Liu Tego did not understand why she called the main character brother and his uncle. A system appeared that explained that there was a conversation. It was only now, after close contact with the girl, that he realized something was wrong with her. She just escaped from the neighborhood, Ahun, and she was drugged. So right now, they're still active. You can wait for him and see what happens next. The next day, she brought tea for him. The girl felt a sense of dizziness again. He caught her again. She was embarrassed. Liu Tegu burst in on them. He immediately saw what was going on between them and asked if next time he would have to pay to watch such content. He'll wait for them outside and they can take their time. When they're done, have them call him back. She apologized for Uncle Liu getting it all wrong, but she shouldn't worry. He also added that he will do everything now. Her thoughts carried themselves in the wrong direction. They'd only known each other for 2 days after all. She immediately squealed her agreement. He didn't understand what kind of consent he was talking about. She covered her face and was even more embarrassed than even before. The girl's response was for him to just do what he wanted. Mentally, she didn't understand why the embarrassment. Her pulse is weird. That's not good. The pulse is rapid. Veins are dilated, and there are blood flow problems. This is heat arising from an overabundance of yang energy. But you can feel the coldness from the yin energy outside. It seems to be the effects of a substance that stimulates the body. A system appeared that praised this smart guy. The main character asked if there were any drugs left in her system. He decided to look. There was blood coming from his nose. Xiao Luo mentioned for him to look normally. A few days have passed, and all the substances have already dissolved. However, it can be seen that the neurons in her brain have been damaged by this drug. If she does not take it again, the damaged part of her brain will cause dizziness and other symptoms. And it's called addiction. No wonder those thugs said it wouldn't get away from them. They control the girls with drugs. This can be cured with this book, which he can sell for 2,000 points. He bought a book on acupuncture. When he learned the technique, he began to get down to performing it. She was hot. By stimulating her renal energy channel, it allows blood to flow back down to facilitate the effects of the drug. It's perfect. And the last one, she felt even hotter. The sight of it made the system faint. It'll be over soon. He's lost too much blood and he definitely needs to calm down. Xiao Luo asked if the character settings could be changed. He can no longer look at such a pathetic uncle. First he calls the system candy, and then he rejects it so cruelly. The guy called him an idiot and said he just wanted to change his skin. A skin store opened up in front of him. The system gave him different options. Pikachu, Doge, not even the dumb panda memes. This system was starting to annoy him again, and he said change. A random, beautiful, epic skin worth 648 points opened up. He decided to skin Doge after all. But he was still thinking about the 648 points. The first refill doubled, but he wasn't thinking of spending money on skins. When the kid came out, the Lugu offered to show him a couple of secret moves. He kicked his partner, not sure what he was even talking about. She was just poisoned, and he was treating her. It's probably the substance they were talking to earlier. When Xiao Luo sent him to their headquarters in the Hong region the next night, a truck arrived there. The men who were unloading the goods from the truck were wearing chemical defense suits. They were carefully unloading boxes of test tubes, but one fell out and broke, and the pills from that vial flew far away and went straight to him. He wondered what kind of pill it was. This is the same drug that is now poisoning Jin Li's body. He asked the system if it had a scanning function and if he could check the ingredients. But he can only do that by scanning the human body. He also called the kid Uncle. The protagonist punched him. He arrived at the hospital. On the phone, he spoke to Ju and he told her that the most important thing was to help check the ingredients. These flowers he placed near the Sunyu. For all that the Dragon Gang had done to her, then he would repay them 1,000 times more. Ju and complained that her brother almost killed her. Because she asked a lab colleague to check the composition of a pill, she was almost reported. This substance is under special control. It is strictly prohibited for distribution. Its content is 95%. This stuff is highly addictive and repeated use will cause significant brain damage. She doesn't care where he made those pills, but he should even stay away from them. Does she really think her brother is that kind of person? He was just checking it out for a friend. He just shouldn't get into trouble. Now the Dragon Gang is using illegal substances. They've gotten really naughty. Doge asked where they were going. Shouldn't they first investigate where the drug is coming from? but he already knows what he should do. This herb likes shade and cold, and it is also particularly demanding of soil. In order to use it as a raw material for pharmaceuticals, a huge investment is required to grow this herb in large quantities. Secondly, to achieve this frequency requires professional equipment for multiple distillation and purification. And the production process emits caustic gas. Therefore, it is necessary to recycle the grass in a deserted place so as not to reveal the existence of the plant. The system was surprised he was so smart, considering all these conditions to him, but he comes only one place next to Jiancheng. It's a Lunton pharmacy in a southern city. He came to that one for water. The thick gate is surrounded by high walls, and guards are plentiful. Something important to them is definitely in there. Looks like these Dragon Gang cars are where they haul in the drugs. Well, it's about time he got here. He made his way through the guards. How interesting it was to find out what the Dragon Gang was hiding even here. This is where the production of conventional medicines takes place. This is used specifically for cover. There's also an alarm system. I think what he's looking for is right outside that door. It's too well protected. He hid when two people started coming in here. The woman asked why it was so cold and dirty inside. What if she slips and hits her head? But this is in accordance with the cultivation conditions of myasin grass. He handed Mrs. Chen the key. The man also said that he would start production. But he shouldn't be in a hurry, because it's too late. Xiao Li thanked for his concern, but he urgently needs a shipment of goods today, something that it is better to hurry after all. Last time, that woman gave him a headache for 3 days. He can't take it anymore. He had an idea. He hit on Mrs. Chen. She collapsed and asked if he really had eyes in the back of his head. Xiao Luo apologized to Madam. He was careless. She thought the man was just a handsome man, so the woman inquired what department he was from, and he should come to her office promptly. In the manager's office, 1 word, and he's out of here. He asked the lady not to do it. He really needs this job to feed his family. The boy will do whatever she tells him to do. She moved closer to him and asked him if he was willing to do everything. Xiao Luo replied that he was. Then he'll be working overtime tonight. If he knows what the woman is talking about. If he pleases her, she guarantees he won't fly out of here. But he decided not to listen to her further. That woman is too disgusting. The sight of that fat woman would make the system puke. No one's ever scared him like that before. He took the key and entered the greenhouse with his help. Watering and cooling. Manufacturing equipment. A highly concentrated extract from the herb mycelium. There were also guards there. But the guy got rid of them quickly. This substance is the same. And you can't just leave it alone. He ruined it. Carriers asked who he was. That was fast. The alarms activated and the woman woke up quickly. She didn't realize what had happened. He called back and asked if they had arrived yet. A man reported that he found evidence. That's exactly what they need. They will attack according to plan and no one must escape. During the assault, it's over and she needs to get out of here as soon as possible. But the target was captured. They fired and the car lost control. She crashed into a tree. He reported that all personnel have been arrested. She ordered everyone to pack up. We need to send the evidence. He did a great job today, so the girl thanked him. The guy replied that he had his own reasons. He just needed their fighting power. If they want to thank him, have the newspaper do a story on the operation. Her sister was wrong about Xiao Luo. He's a good man. There was an article in the newspaper that the police had conducted another successful operation. A pharmaceutical company was illegally producing banned drugs. Solved another big case. That the Dragon Gang's apartment. Lun Sankui, the boss of the Dragon Gang. Feng Zhiqiang was in charge of people from a pharmaceutical company in Guanming district. Therefore, San Kuyu wondered why the police had discovered them so suddenly. He replied to the gentleman that it was a sudden police assault. He does not know what caused it. And he had just received information that the Chen manager had been seriously injured and was now dead. Her connection to the Dragon Gang is impossible to establish. No one knows about them. However, a Chen manager is not enough to take out the entire top of a pharmaceutical company, so they don't have a problem. He's figured it out and he'll get right on it. If this happens in the future, the same fate as the Fen awaits them. He was punched in the face. Others shouted out that they had figured it out. He appreciates Zhiqian's support. He also asks for forgiveness for the inconvenience caused. If he doesn't apply symbolic punishment to him, others may feel displeased. It was indeed his negligence, and he is willing to accept the punishment. All these years he has managed the Guanming district well. However, the takeover of a pharmaceutical company has put them at a disadvantage. Orders from the HAI Shui company next month may suffer. He has a plan to make sure the order is delivered on time. He forgot to mention that the apple grass medicine recipe was modified from the unique scorpion's tail potion of Madame Hui Shui's niece. In the red zone, a laboratory continues to exist. It's specifically designed for the production of scorpion's tail. There's a large stockpile of apple herbs, and they could start production at any time. While the volume doesn't compare to pharma, they still have plenty of time to ship. This man really is his staunch ally in this case. Critical moment, he continues to be reliable. Also, he had just mentioned that the Black Scorpio was not in the red zone, so he wondered where it was. She continued to investigate the tragic death of her parents 10 years ago. Ms. Black Scorpion thinks she is operating in secret, but the red zone left behind by her father has long been under the control of his people. Everything she does cannot escape observation. Besides, the site of the incident that happened years ago has been treated very cleanly. She won't be able to find anything. When he and Black Scorpio's father had founded the Dragon Gang, he had always been adamantly opposed to his involvement in this illegal business. He was firm in his principles and could not achieve greatness. Even then he realized that Senior Tree was someone who possessed true courage. It turns out he decided to pass on his old master, but he calls it going over to the winning side. He just didn't expect the man to act so decisively, effectively settling the matter with Song Minhui's couple. He was the one who advised them to keep their daughter alive, and it was a really good move. If the entire Dream family died overnight, the loved ones of the Minhui Dream in the red zone would inevitably suspect them. By adopting her as his goddaughter, allowing her to control the red zone on the surface, he would not only clear his name, but also soothe the hearts of the people. This can be considered a righteous and compassionate act. For years they have been running the affairs of the Black Scorpion, but in fact they have already turned over all the affairs of the red zone to their proxies. Then he was able to pass on Minhui's dream for profit, and now perhaps bite him in return. But if it came to that, he would not be as kind-hearted as Minhui's son. And to thank Xiao Luo, she invited him to dinner. Last time at a crime scene, she always wanted to ask how the guy knew the pharmaceutical company was hiding banned drugs. The guy explained that he works in the media, and he always has his sources of information. He thanked her for trusting his judgment then. In the same establishment, a girl with black hair walked by. He felt a strong pulse from her. She informed Uncle Fen that she and a friend would be traveling and return in a few days. Therefore, he should take care of business in the red zone. They dared to write nasty things about the Dragon Gang and seem to think they have a long life ahead of them. She called the protagonist to come back faster. Turns out she was hiding out here. No wonder he couldn't find her anywhere. He said to tie up Jin Lee and take him back. The drug addiction behavior should have manifested itself a long time ago. Therefore, he did not understand why it seemed perfectly normal. A Lu Tegu burst in on them and asked if they had forgotten about the law in broad daylight. The blonde man reported that this was the guy who had stolen Jin Lee last time. As soon as Lu Tag introduced himself, their man realized that he was the one for him. He wanted to inflict a five-fisted pine nut combo with a flutter of phlegm. The man punched him in the face, calling him an idiot. Xiao Luo appeared and asked what he was doing here. The blonde informed the Dao Gay that this guy was here last time too. He had wounded a few of their guys. Originally, he just wanted to teach him not to write stupid stuff. Now it looks like they have a single issue to resolve. Now I see why they came looking for trouble. But he thinks it's exactly the kid's problem. But the protagonist grabbed his arm, saying that his kung fu was not up to par. Turns out he's an inner energy warrior. Then no wonder he's so arrogant. Then he would allow him to experience something amazing today. He asked me not to disappoint him. He jumped back and summoned a silver python. Well, even with that attack, he couldn't do anything. The silver beetle suits him better than the python. He couldn't understand how a martial artist of internal energy martial arts was able to master the Vajra of immobility, after which he immediately threw back his opponent. The guy informed me that this article was just the beginning. Sooner or later, he would reveal all the crimes the Dragon Gang had committed to the public. Now they better get out of here. The system explained that, according to conventional wisdom, martial arts mainly include spheres and techniques. Spheres range from initial energy, external energy, internal energy, postpartum to prepartum. That Scar guy also possesses internal energy, but after this fight, Xiao Luo feels much higher than him. This is because of the fact that he cultivated the Easy Muscle Change Classics, which is an earth-level technique. Techniques are divided into heavenly, earthly, profound, and yellow, and their proficiency level ranges from unfamiliar, familiar, mastered, to perfect. At the moment, his technique, light classical muscle change technique, is in the improvement stage. The Dragon Gang will not give up so easily, so he must improve quickly. And skill can only be improved in real combat. And Bao and her came to see her mom and dad. Uncle Song and Aunt Jo don't have to worry. After all, they're doing well. She's so strong now that people call her Black Scorpio's sister. He's almost like a little brother. He's never been good with words. She's bound to learn the truth about her parents' murder. The girl had the feeling that someone was behind the accident. Last time he failed a task, he was defamed by San-Yi. So now he will rely on her. It was just one mistake. When the dragon's uncle needed her, he would naturally come to him. Feng Zhiqiang called back to him. The girl said to pick up the phone, but not to say they were together. He was informed to have the lad look after the Len Bao. He should keep an eye on him and let him know if anything happens. The next day, he knew so-and-so knew that San-A really needed their help, so he turned to Brother Bao. Recently, his martial arts had improved rapidly. After completing the task, San-Ye would definitely use his help. If it wasn't for that damned Xiao Luo, he would have continued to be a fighter. He is the #1 in the Dragon Gang. It was just one mistake. Who is this Xiao Luo anyway? But he clearly didn't expect to see him at the entrance to the newspaper's newsroom. Feng Zhiqiang ruined him. Xiao Luo couldn't believe that he had the nerve to appear in front of him. He'll kill that kid in minutes, so he should run while he can. He was very interested to see how they thought to do it. Last time he was caught off guard by his sneak attack. But he learned that lesson. Hidden in the movements of his feet is a strength ready to strike. Does this man really want to attack his lower body? Brother Bao has made a move, and that brat is definitely dead by now. This time, it was his younger brother's recklessness. Brother Xiao is a big man, so he asked to let his younger brother go. He clearly didn't expect this outcome. He will let the man go, but first he must answer a few questions. He told the guys to wait for him in the car, and he would talk to Brother Xiao. The first question was exactly who had sent him. The man asked if the protagonist didn't know who he had crossed the road to. He told him to stop talking nonsense and answer faster. So he replied that Master Feng had sent him to teach him a lesson. This Master Feng is a high-ranking member of the Dragon Gang in the Red District. He is in charge of affairs in the Red District, and the pharmaceutical company is located in his territory. After which he asked how much they knew about the drugs used by the Dragon Gang in the Red District. Meanwhile, someone took a picture of them. Master Feng is really insightful. Leng Bao is a troubled kid. He realized that this time it was over and decided to pack his things to avoid. But they were already here waiting for him. He hadn't expected to see Fen's brother here. He asked to be let go. After all, he was wrong. He didn't know that Feng's brother wanted him to deal with Xiao Luo. The man inquired as to what else he knew. He said that he was the boss of the Low Fan, and he used to have a grudge against the Dragon Gang. The third master once sent him and the big monkey to deal with him. He ended up killing a large monkey and he was lucky to survive. He also explained that this guy's skill was unbelievable. He wouldn't have been able to beat him, but he needed help with one more thing. It was pretty simple. He must lend his life. He ordered to report that the Cold Leopard had failed the mission and was killed by Xiao Luo. He brought documents with information about the car accident. All procedures look legitimate and compliant, but there are some abnormalities. There are no photos of the scene, and the car that was involved in the accident is not visible. In a typical car accident, both the victim and the at-fault party need time to negotiate a solution. But her parents were in a car accident on April 19th, and they confirmed everything in literally 2 days, followed all the procedures. This quick processing doesn't sound like they wanted the deceased to rest in peace as soon as possible. It's more like they were in a hurry to hide something. Suddenly, she saw the message that the Cold Leopard had been killed. The next day, she went to her boss to ask who killed the Cold Leopard. Even a person like a Cold Leopard wouldn't be able to handle it. Godfather doesn't want her to take any more risks, but she can't forget it. The girl asked me to tell you who killed a Bao. He always knew she had a temper. He revealed that the man's name was Xiao Luo. Previously, he had a conflict with the Dragon Gang. He asked the Cold Leopard to go and make peace with him, but who knew that this person would kill him? The Bao's possible words infuriated this guy and led to a deadly fight. Xiao Luo is a martial arts master with strong skills, so Godfather doesn't want her to get involved. He doesn't have to worry about that. She knows what she needs to do. She will definitely be looking for trouble herself. When two tigers fight, one of them is bound to get hurt. It's ruthless. But he decided to kill 2 birds with 1 stone by simply following the third master's intentions. In the end, the Cold Leopard died without any evidence. All that remains is to sit back and watch the tigers fight. It was raining so hard that even he was soaked through. Xiao Luo asked who asked him to behave calmly and not to use an umbrella. They saw an unfamiliar girl waiting for them along with Jin Li. Uncle Liu and Brother Xiao came just in time. This girl also escaped from the red zone. She fainted at the door of the newsroom, and she helped her. Her fellow villagers tricked her into working in the red zone. When she got there, she was forced to engage in certain activities and managed to escape. She asked Brother Xiao to help her in some way. Was this another case of red zone offense? Liu Dago wanted to refuse, but the protagonist stopped him. He was surprised that Xiao Luo's brain, which was made of wood, seemed to be working. As it turns out, this girl's name is Zhou Rong. Now she doesn't have to worry because she's safe. Like Godfather said, he's just a guy who lusts after women. The system asked why he had agreed to it so easily, but he had his own thoughts about the case. A few days later, the system stared at her brightly colored breasts. He'd never seen a system as obscene as his before. He said he was leaving on business and would be back in an hour. She decided to take advantage of it. The girl sneaks into his office and goes to his computer to find out what secrets he has. Suddenly, she heard his voice asking what on earth she was doing here. Zhou Rong explained that Mr. Liu said that there was some information on the protagonist's computer. Since the computer has a password, he offered his help. She agreed. She should memorize this password well, and then she wouldn't need Xiao Luo's help. But suddenly he grabbed her. The girl asked Brother Xiao not to do that. He apologized, talking about how she was too pretty, so he couldn't help himself. Turns out he's quite the lecher. The system asked if he had finally learned how to seduce young girls. Xiao Luo replied that he was not as dirty as that dog. It claimed to have spent a long time in the red zone. But when he took her wrist, he found no signs of drug addiction like Jin Li. In addition, she instinctively released true Qi, and the bracelet on her wrist looks familiar. He feels like he has seen it somewhere before. I'm a real person, becoming more and more intriguing. Midnight. Xiao Luo's office. She had a check with Scorpion's tail poison in her hands. Even if you don't drink water, the toxin will be airborne. Suddenly, someone turned on the lights. He marveled at how dedicated she was to her work. It's so late, and she continues to help Luigi in his search for information. Ona wondered why Xiao Luo was here late at night, but he was the first one to ask. She said she escaped from the red zone, but there was no trace of drugs in her body. And she even possesses true Qi. Her cultivation level is not like someone who entered the red zone by trickery to sell herself. She had originally wanted him to die painlessly, but he had decided on his own to choose a different path. He stopped her fist, but the girl had no idea that his cultivation level would be higher. Xiao Luo grabbed her by the throat and asked if she had any other tricks. The girl screamed for him to let her go. He did as she said, and explained that he wasn't going to harm Miss Song Qingjia. The girl didn't understand what he was talking about. He guessed that she was San Kui's goddaughter, codenamed Black Scorpion, in charge of the Red Zone gang Longa, though she's only the named leader. The information that is in this folder should help her. She took the folder, but still didn't understand what this guy was up to. There were pictures, and the information she'd been looking for so long but couldn't find, and they were all in front of her. Many doubts about the accident involving her parents can be explained by these records. The driver who was responsible for the accident died at a remote gas station the day after the paperwork was completed. A surveillance camera captured a Dragon Gang vehicle passing by. A traffic accident investigator, who was also a level 2 police detective, died at his home with 5 gunshot wounds. Witnesses claimed to have seen members of the Dragon Gang at the scene. All the evidence points to one person who is the mastermind, Feng Jiqiang. She had suspicions before, but he had been loyal to her father for years. She should think about how Feng Jiqiang had changed over the years, and then everything would become clear to her. He also suggested a temporary truce between the two. After this issue is resolved, she will return to exact her revenge. The protagonist didn't understand what grievances she might have. Also, she must not forget to drop off her stuff. The system asked why he couldn't just tell her the whole truth. It's her parents, so let her deal with it. Red Zone building. She was greeted by an employee and asked if Uncle Fen was in place. The man with red hair replied that he was in place. He then reported to his boss that Ms. Black Scorpio had returned and was on her way to his office. She's supposed to be in charge of killing Xiao Luo. He asked the girl if she wasn't supposed to be busy avenging the cold leopard and why she had time to come to see her uncle. She asked her uncle what really happened in the car accident to her parents. She keeps digging deeper into the case. He showed her the accident report. It's already settled. She replied that she already knew everything. He should not use the same reservations to dismiss her. Using his connections, he quickly committed the murder by covering it up as an accident. He closed the case and carefully dealt with everyone involved. It's been so many years that some things are better left untouched. Does he really admit to all the accusations against him? He was surprised that she had investigated everything thoroughly. So continuing to cover it up didn't make sense. She didn't understand his motives. Her father had always regarded the man as his confidant and had never even considered betrayal. He replied that everything happened because of interests.